Welcome to the Sharpcast, where we will talk about puppies and all things nice.
Get that shit out of here, motherfucker! Sharpcast, make your brain blast! Political conversations don't make you think! Yes, Sharpcast, it'll make your brain blast! Come and sit down and have a civil debate!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sharpcast HEATED. I hope everybody's enjoyed their Christmas. I hope everybody's enjoyed their New Year. I hope everybody is counting down the days to the inauguration of a new president. And to the people that were perfectly fine with the political coup on Capitol Hill, stay mad, please. I want you to feel that way.
Yeah, seriously, fuck you guys. So we're a lot's happened since we last spoke to you guys. The two biggest ones, of course, being that Donald Trump has been kicked off of Twitter forever by Dick. And he's also made American history in that he's been impeached again. First American president to ever get impeached twice. How about that? And we'll give you guys a little tidbits on the impeachment trial and how it's going to work. It can happen, by the way, after he leaves office. So Mitch McConnell certainly isn't worried about that, because why would he be? But starting tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different from what we've done here on the program. You've noticed that since we've started this program, we've been very much kind of like a recap type of program. It's basically us coming on here and going, oh dear God, what the fuck happened this week? Well, hopefully we will no longer have to do that, because we think, we hope, we pray that with the Biden administration, we are going to be transitioning from a relatively chaotic period of American history to a relatively more stable one. And because of that, and because we hopefully won't have to come on here every week and recap the latest scandal or debacle or crisis or what have you, we'll be able to spend time actually discussing various ideas about politics and talking about various issues ranging from current events to things that happen to be on our minds that we've wanted to talk about for some time but haven't really gotten around to. And so with that framework, I thought we'd kind of get into that tonight. And we're going to start by talking about something that has really played a big role certainly in the last couple of months without a lot of people realizing it. Just over a week ago, we had an attempt to overthrow the United States government, okay? It was the first time since 1814 that our nation's capital was sieged and occupied by a hostile force. And this time it wasn't, it wasn't some foreign army like the British that came in and raised everything. No, this was American citizens. Why were they there? Because they believed, despite no evidence whatsoever to prove their claims, that Joe Biden was going to be an illegitimately elected president and that Donald Trump was being overthrown in a bloodless coup. So they decided to try and stop that with a bloody coup, but fortunately were unsuccessful. They may try again to do so this week. I do know that there were armed demonstrators once again at my state capitol in Lansing. I don't think anything really happened, though, because the Michigan National Guard is about 2 mechanized columns stationed outside of the Capitol building. So I'm sure they saw that, turned around and like, yeah, okay, none of that today. But still the question remains, why did they do this? Why did people get it into their heads that this election was stolen, despite everyone and their mothers proving repeatedly that it isn't? And just to be clear, the most striking thing about the mob that sieged the Capitol, it wasn't made up of your typical stereotypical 4chan or 8chan geeks. It wasn't like people that are clearly living on the fringes of society.
I mean, that's the hardest thing to swallow here. Is it's really easy to convince yourself that the people that voted Trump from late 2015 election to to now,
Mhm.
and how more and more people were indoctrinated, it's really easy to convince yourself that all of those people were just 4chan chuds and had no life, and they were only on Reddit and Twitter. But the truth is, this dominated the global discourse. I think the
Yeah.
thing that is so insane was people that had no impact or sway on the American election whatsoever were tying their boats to Trump when he would have no real uh,
Yeah.
direct impact on them.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, it's these seditionists, ranging from the people outside the Capitol building to their collaborators in Congress. It's not just the crazies. I mean, it's one thing if Devin Nunes or Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, by the way, just got hit with a 12-hour Twitter ban, so good on you there, Jack. It's one thing if idiots like those people say that, oh, the election was stolen because the Democrats don't want the Democrats want. Oh, I'm sorry, the Democrats want to leak the nude pictures of Donald Trump, which Devin Nunes seems strangely fixated on for some reason. But it's another thing when you have people that should absolutely know better, like Josh Hawley, taking part of this. Now, in the case of Josh Hawley, it's a bit more explicable. You know, this is a guy who wants to get on the ballot for 2024 and now is watching his entire political career go up in smoke. But then you have people like a woman named Christine Priola. Christine Priola is a 49-year-old from Cleveland who was a special needs teacher in the Cleveland Public School District for 10 years. This is a woman who flew to the Capitol building, who took part in the insurrection, who helped storm the chambers and actually got up to the chair the vice president sat in during the joint session of Congress. The day after the insurrection, she flew back home and she utterly resigned from her job. So she flew to DC, stormed the Capitol building, and then quit her job as a teacher. And in her resignation letter, she said the following three things. I will not be taking the coronavirus vaccine in order to return to in-person learning. I will be switching paths to expose the global evil of human trafficking and pedophilia, including in our government and children's service agencies. And I do not agree with my union dues, which help fund people and groups that support the killing of unborn children. Now, just take a minute to process this, okay? Now, granted, we don't know a whole lot about Christine Priola's life. This is only like the bare details. But this is a middle-aged professional woman who had dedicated her career to helping kids, who had a very steady job and presumably a decent pension. One day, she's out of nowhere storming the Capitol building with people who are quite clearly insane. I mean, this charge is being led by a guy in a fur cap and Viking horns who is also not only in jail, but is refusing to eat because they're not serving him organic food. Oh, good. Excellent. But 24 hours after she does that, she quits her job and says she wants to dedicate her life to fighting a global pedophile ring that has infiltrated the United States government. Of course,
so like let's do a head count. How many conspiracies just happened here all at once? Like
Jesus.
when she's talking about a pedophile ring, she's
that's
talking about
QAnon.
Yeah, she's talking about QAnon. She's probably talking about Pizzagate. There's no question there. When she's talking about the global killing of babies, she's probably talking about how the conspiracy's been formed that late-term abortion is literally just these people mutilating live babies. Like, that's what happens here. When she's talking about unions being used to fund people, particularly bad people, she's probably talking about the idea that union funds go towards any type of direct funding of terrorism towards the community, which they don't. That would be illegal.
Jesus.
Now, the thing that's frightening isn't the fact that these things are facts, right? The thing that makes these things facts in most people's heads is because you are convinced that times are so erratic, so volatile, so extreme, that the mere fact that they could be a possibility seems to be what makes these things a fact. You can't disprove it, therefore it's fact.
Yes.
And
So,
ironically enough, This is the same kind of mentality that goes into creationism.
There is definitely a lot of overlap, but so what we're seeing here, if you're wondering just how ordinary, like again, it's one thing if people that are clearly nuts believe the bullshit that comes out of Trump's mouth, but how do you get ordinary people who should know better to storm the Capitol building? Well, what we're seeing here is we're seeing Trump and his allies deploy a tactic that really hasn't been seen in American politics before, but it has been seen elsewhere, most notably in the rise of the Nazis over in Germany. And it's a tactic called the big lie. The big lie is not something that, it wasn't necessarily invented by the Nazis, but it was used by them, and they more or less wrote the playbook on how to employ the big lie. And Adolf Hitler wrote about it in Mein Kampf, which I'm going to read an excerpt from you now. Just a disclaimer.
Oh, God, you have an actual copy?
Yes. Well, no, I have the Wikipedia page. So,
Oh, fuck.
yeah, just a disclaimer. We here at the Sharpcast do not condone Nazism or any ideologies therein.
I know there's
found in
some
Mein
rumors
Kampf.
that Trump
Here's your trigger
had a copy
warning.
of Mein Kampf, but I was hoping you didn't.
No. I was given a copy of the Communist Manifesto in my political science class in Michigan, but that's about it.
Okay.
Anyway, so
Careful, Helios. There are many people that think being handed the Communist Manifesto is the same thing as being given Mein Kampf.
Oh, Jesus.
all right. So again, this is
Right.
what Hitler wrote in Volume 1, Chapter 10 of Mein Kampf about the big lie. But it remained for the Jews, with their unqualified capacity for falsehood and their fighting comrades, the Marxists, to impute responsibility for the downfall precisely to the man who alone had shown a superhuman will and energy in his effort to prevent the catastrophe which he had foreseen and to save the nation from that hour of complete overthrow and shame. By placing responsibility for the loss of the World War on the shoulders of Ludendorff, who is one of the central figures of the German army in World War I, they took away the weapon of moral right from the only adversary dangerous enough to be likely to succeed in bringing the betrayers of the fatherland to justice. All of this was inspired by the principle, which is quite true within itself, that in the big lie, there is always a certain force of credibility. Because the broad masses of a nation are always more easily corrupted in the deeper strata of their emotional nature than consciously or voluntarily. And thus, in the primitive simplicity of their minds, they more readily fall victims to the big lie than the small lie, since they themselves often tell small lies in little matters, but would be ashamed to resort to large-scale falsehoods. It would never come into their heads to fabricate colossal untruths, and they would not believe that others could have the impudence to distort the truth so infamously. Even though the facts which prove this to be so may be brought clearly to their minds, they will still doubt and waver and will continue to think there may be some other explanation. For the grossly impudent lie always leaves traces behind it, even after it's been nailed down, a fact which is known to all expert liars in the world and to all who conspire together in the art of lying. So, what is this asshole trying to tell us here? Well, what Hitler is doing here is he's describing not only how the big lie works, but why it works. The big lie, as its name suggests, is a insane distortion or misrepresentation of the facts. It's basically a lie so colossal, that is so outrageous, that when you hear it, the only reactions you have are either this person is completely full of shit or they know something that I don't. And the reason why it works is because we all lie in our lives. We all tell little white lies to get through the day. But we know where it's okay to lie a little bit and where you're obviously making things up. Like if I were to say, yes, mom and dad, the charges on my bank account are all for video games and not for copious amounts of furry porn, that's a little white lie. On the other hand, if I was to say, the sun actually goes around the earth, that's the big lie.
No, you know what? Let's relate to a lie that a lot of our audience members can probably relate to understand the nature of this.
Yes.
So let's say you're an LGBTQ homosexual person, right?
Yeah.
You're in an extraordinarily rural community. Every day, you are lying about the fact that you're LGBT to protect yourself. Now imagine that lie is incremental. That lie is practically important to your survival in the current situation you're in. This is not a falsehood. This is not made up. This is everyday life. This is the life that some of you still live. So I know
Yes.
when I say this, a lot of you can relate to it. What
And
if, and then I'm thinking on this. What if your opposition was convinced that if they did not keep telling themselves this lie that, say, Mexicans were coming to take all our jobs, or the Democrats constantly want to sabotage the workforce, they would be forced to reconcile with something much worse than the lie they've told themselves. And it's the fact that they don't know anything, that they're confused, that they're lost, that they're inadequate. And in the current mentality we've enforced in the United States of America, which is toxic, you are weak, pathetic, and hopeless if you find yourself in that state of mind.
Yes. This is, in essence, the reason the big lie, again, another reason the big lie works is because you assume that, first of all, you assume that no one would ever lie about something that is just so completely outrageous and so easily able to be proven false. So you think to yourself, well, if I was president and I lost the election fair and square, I wouldn't lie about it, and I wouldn't lie about it. I wouldn't spend weeks going, no, it was actually all rigged, and I really won, and my opponent's cheating, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't do that. So it stands to reason that why would Trump do that? Because clearly if I can't do it, I don't think anyone else could really do it. And ultimately, that's where the big lie starts to take hold and take a foot, because you, especially if you voted for this man in 2016, you spent the last 4 years supporting this man, and you think, that he's an honest, decent man, which again, all evidence to the contrary, but whatever. But if you already have that as your mindset, you go into this, you go on TV and hear Trump saying, I won the election, there were millions of illegal votes, or zombie Hugo Chavez rigged the machine so Joe Biden would win. You think to yourself, I wouldn't tell that lie, so why should I believe Trump told that lie? And obviously he's the president, so he's got access to all this kind of information. So clearly he knows something that I don't.
And here's
so
the
fuck
thing.
it, let's go burn down the Capitol building.
And here's the thing. If you voted for Trump and he became the 2016 president, that's your representative. Any lie he tells reflects back on you. So either you believe that lie, or that man's not your president.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what the whole not my president movement was actually about. It was never a question of whether Donald Trump was or wasn't the president. It was whether those people actually felt Donald Trump represented them or not. And people made very clear, this man doesn't speak for me.
Here's the thing. As I actually voted for Trump back during that election.
Damn.
And yeah, this gives me a unique perspective.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
like, what is the perspective, Ren? Expand on it.
Well, the perspective in that case, I started realizing that though I am angry about all the things that I've been dealt with, all the problems that I've found in the left that have just hit me like a goddamn dump truck. That Donald Trump was not really any different regarding just not that different in all these falsehoods and some of these falsehoods he genuinely believed in, and all this stuff.
So here's a thought, and you can tell me whether it's true or false. Some point or another, It didn't matter whether he was lying or not, because everyone else in politics lies to some capacity. What matters is what he could give you or the people you felt he supported.
Yes.
Bingo. That's politics in a nutshell. Everyone thinks that way at some point or another. That's not uncommon. Everybody thought that way when they voted Biden because the primary thing they wanted was no more Trump.
Yeah. I was going to say that's a big part of. I've often said to people that if you really do want to understand the mentality of someone who would cast a vote for Donald Trump, a big part of it is anger. It's anger that, from their point of view, is justifiable. And it's not necessarily like in Ren's case where you're just so fed up with the left where you just want to shut them up. I mean, that certainly makes a big part of it. But also, you know, I've often mentioned in this program how a big part of the Trumpian right is white grievance identity politics. You know, these are people who, I've often used the phrase that these are people who fly the "don't tread on me" flag who have never been tread on in their lives.
Yeah.
But it's also people who feel that for one reason or another that they've gotten a raw deal, that they've gotten a bad hand in life, and they want to get even.
Yeah, and I actually have something to say to expand upon that, because one thing I think is going to be important here in the Sharpcast is when people, my co-hosts, Ren, Gonzo, or you, feel like you have something to say, you need to chime in, because right here and now is the only time you're going to be able to get your voice heard. When it comes to flying the "don't tread on me" flag, I believe in the Gadsden flag, and I don't reject people who do believe in it. What I reject is the idea that people who act so selfish, so self-centered, can know what it's like to be tread upon.
Yeah.
I've been tread upon, and you know what I do? I give more. I give what I don't have, and that's naive of me. And I've learned from that. But I give because giving's important. Giving's important for the soul. And you learn that when you're somebody who's been tread upon. Because here's the reality, right? Most of us as people aren't well-rounded emotionally and mentally. The place where we largely seek validation is in what we do for other people and whether we feel like we're a contributing member of society.
Mm-hmm.
So when I help people, that does far more for me than Gonzo going, "Oh, Sharp, I think the world of you. You're great. You've done so much for me." That doesn't do it for me. What does it for me is the satisfaction of a tangible action that tells me I'm not the devil incarnate.
Oh, I agree 1,000% there, because, I mean, I've often said, like, one of my biggest complaints when it comes to the internet activists, whether it's on the left or it's on the right, whether it's, you know, people saying we gotta get rid of capitalism, or we gotta build the wall, or people fighting for these various causes that they think is just like, if we just do this thing that I'm advocating for, we will make America great, or what have you. It's like you're fighting for this cause, and I'm just thinking, okay, that's great. I see you up here, and you're retweeting all the articles from The Guardian or Breitbart or whatever, and you're putting in all the hashtags. Other than that, what have you actually done to help the problem? Like, what have you actually done anything to help, or are you just sitting around retweeting stuff all day? Okay, because I volunteer for food bank.
By proxy, like, I think some people who voted for Trump thought he helped by talking down to the people who looked like at the surface they weren't going to do anything in the first place. So he helped, I think, in some people's minds, by giving a voice to the people that just wanted to stand up and scream in that crowd to either Hillary Clinton or whoever the hell was on that stage, "Oh, shut the fuck up. It's going to be like last year. You're not going to do anything for any of us."
Okay, and here's what I've heard that line of thought before, like people saying, well, I don't like really any of Trump's policies, but I voted for him because, you know, he puts the left in their place. Here's what I say to that. Don't be a fucking YouTube guy. Okay, don't make a podcast on YouTube. Don't be the president of the United States.
Ouch! Helios, you just like fucking shot all of us, man.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, if you want to come talk down the left, you want to call them a bunch of snowflakes, go be Dave Rubin, go be Charlie Kirk,
Yeah.
go be Ben Shapiro.
It's
Don't
my
be
thing. Well, I'm on both sides here, right? Because when it
Uh-huh.
comes to catharsis, I get it.
Yeah.
It can really feel good when you tell the other guy you know is not doing anything to shut the fuck up. That person, and it's true, right? You're some weirdo degenerate with all this weird ass porn and shit like that, and you're sitting here judging people with a vor fetish, for example, right? You got no place. You got no place. I can understand that position. Because it's true. A lot of people are goddamn hypocrites, and they'll push so fucking hard to hide some skeleton in their closet that they'll condemn the people who are just like them. And I know for a fact I've stood with a lot of people when I come with the fact, you know what, I'm done talking. I just want to punch this fucker in the face. Like everybody's felt that way.
Well,
I
listen.
think at that
the
point I
reason,
reached it, and I ended up having to leave your Legion about it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the reason I say go be a guy on YouTube is not necessarily because I think you're a hypocrite or whatever. I mean, you could be completely sincere and everything. The reason I say if you just want to go on Twitter and own the libs, then don't be
Right.
president is because that's not why you become president. You become
I've
president
always-
because you want to actually run the country.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair. And in my position, right? The reason I bring up, the whole thing about having weird fetishes yourself and then judging somebody with one weird fetish is this. When it comes to the way the world is currently, society's wretches, cast out, thrown aside, have to work together. They're not going to make it through this alone. And the person who's constantly existing within that subgroup of the people who just suck to the outward lens of the rest of society, society's not helping you. Like the government's not helping you. Wealthy's not helping you. Your employer's not helping you. What the fuck are you doing sitting here judging everybody that's in the same pit you are? You fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Only people who might help you because they know how you feel.
Yeah. Well, this actually is kind of what helps breed ideologies like populism, and especially populism when coupled with the big lie. Because the original big lie, first of all, for context, the original big lie that Hitler used to get to power in Germany was the lie that Germany actually won World War II, even though they got their ass handed to them by pretty much everybody. Hitler's whole thing was, no, we actually won the war. We were just betrayed. This is what he was kind of alluding to in the first, the paragraph of the excerpt was that, well, we actually won World War I, but the Jews and the Marxists were able to stab us in the back. And so the people that could have brought these betrayers to the fatherland to justice ended up getting thrown out instead. So that was the essence of, I mean, not to mention, ultimately they evolved that to this idea that World War II was actually started by the Jews. And so everything up to and including the Holocaust was simply an act of self-defense, because it's like, well, we don't really want to take all the Jews and send them off to die, but, they're plotting to kill us. So, it's either us or them. So, and again, this is a lie that the people of Germany are like, okay, this guy's either completely making the shit up or he knows something that we don't, but we wouldn't lie about any of this. So why would we believe that that our Fuhrer would? He's our leader. Why would he lie to us about something like that?
I will say one key ingredient to setting off the big lie seems consistent, and people drew attention to it when Trump gave his first speech. The key ingredient to establishing the big lie seems to be a situation of desperation where people are willing to believe anything to get out of that situation.
Well, so the phrase, it turns out that the phrase was actually about the big lie was used by the OSS here in the United States in describing Hitler's psychological profile. This is actually part of the psych profile that we wrote on Hitler. His primary rules were never allow the public to cool off, never admit a fault or wrong, never concede that there may be some good in your enemy, never leave room for alternatives, never accept blame, concentrate on one enemy at a time, and blame him for everything that goes wrong. People will believe a big lie sooner than a little one, and if you repeat it frequently enough, people will sooner or later believe it. First of all, that describes Donald Trump almost to a fucking T, mind you. But
Yeah.
that's the whole idea.
Which is
is
why
that
they called him a fascist, because he essentially, whether he knew it or not, used Hitler's playbook exactly.
Yeah, so you're correct, I think, that in order to promulgate a big lie, you need to have a situation where where like things have just gone catastrophically wrong. And the whole reason conspiracy theories even take root in the first place is because when bad things happen, people don't like to believe that they could even happen at all. Like, the reason 9/11 truthers exist. People don't like to people didn't want to believe that 19 psychopaths could hijack 4 airplanes and kill 3,000 people. They were like, that was simply too insane of an idea for them to accept. So it's like, no. It was all an inside job. It was the government that did it. That's what happened.
There can't be any people who would hate on the great United States for no freaking reason. That can't be.
And this was something I personally tied to like a lot of the conspiracies Trump established. It's the fact that when it comes to doubt in your government, that's a really damn good caveat. Because to sit here and pretend like the American government is flawless would be like trying to pull your hair out.
Yeah.
To sit here and pretend like the American government's always been out for and always cared about the American people. Hi, war on drugs. How you doing? Hi, segregation. How's it going there, buddy? Hi, slavery. How's it going?
Yeah.
But, and I would actually argue that, to some degree, college campuses and like the social culture of students at college campuses and the social culture of left-wing activism that was on the rise didn't help. No. Because one thing Trump's rhetoric did say that was proven goddamn true by every word that came out of every leftist's mouth was that they wanted to destroy the Imperial West. I don't know. When I could say something as simple as the United States needs to intervene in Hong Kong, and someone from UC Davis can retort to me with, you fucking idiot, you think fucking imperialist intervention will do anything to solve this problem? The imperialists just want you to think that way. Like, I'm sorry. Those people don't help to de-radicalize. I gotta address the elephant in the room. When you come to the left saying, hey guys, we gotta do something for Hong Kong more than sending them masks to wear so they can hide their faces and sending them fucking materials to make protesting signs with and encouraging protesting as the only option for Hong Kong to save itself from China's autonomous, over-grasping, overpowered, undefeatable grip. Like, they need some show of force. They actually need some superpower to come in and save them from this situation because China's determined to cause another Tiananmen Square massacre. Mm-hmm. That's what I essentially said. They called me a fucking idiot even though I was right. Because guess what? We lost Hong Kong because we didn't intervene. Hong Kong is no longer an ally of the United States. They're owned by China now. So that whole lot of nothing we did, oh yeah, when it came to actually caring about America first, when it came to caring about America's allies, it was all fucking talk.
Yeah, well, they got the America First part right. I mean, and there was actually a quote by, I think it was actually by Mike Pence over the weekend that said, that really just kind of showed you how skewed the priorities are of these guys, when it comes to America First. You'll recall back when we did the program on Trump's comments about our dead soldiers, how we call them all suckers and losers. And we had Super Duper Hooper Trooper on here, and he said that he didn't believe them because he said, if I remember correctly, he trusted a guy who didn't try to put him in any wars more than he trusted the media. And we're all just kind of thinking like, well, okay. Well, Mike Pence made a comment this weekend saying that Trump was the first president to not put America into any new wars. And it's like, yeah, not for lack of, first of all, Mike, not for lack of trying. Because the whole reason the show even exists is because you almost started the war with Iran. That's number one. Number two, and more importantly, you still managed to kill more Americans than like the last 3 wars combined. So, yeah, good job there, Mike. Good job.
Like, how low of a bar have we fucking set for like future presidents now? Holy shit.
Well, let's see. For the military, it looks like as long as you're not sending them to a war, they're cool with you. Like,
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I've heard a lot. Well, some people in the military certainly are, I guess. Others, the leadership, I would guess not so much based on things I've heard that I've said before that it's an open secret that the upper echelon of the Pentagon, at least before they all got fired, did not like Trump. And whenever there was thoughts about a military coup, in fact, the My Pillow guy was over at the White House this weekend, telling Trump, like, yeah, you should totally have the military declare martial law. From my understanding, the general response from the military upper echelon about that idea would be, yeah, fuck no, we're not doing that. Now, part of it's because as a soldier of the United States, you have an obligation to disobey illegal orders. That's number one. Number two, more importantly, these guys hate Trump. So I don't think they're going to be coming to his rescue if things
it's
went
confirmed.
south.
They're not gonna. I've ended up getting sent a few letters that were publicly available, and one of them came from a member of my Discord server that essentially said, to summarize, if he's trying to make us do stuff for him because he doesn't want to leave the White House, we're not gonna fucking do it.
oh shit. So, Gonzo, you actually have people in your Discord server?
One person sent me a copy of the letter. I could put it in here. It'll probably take me a while because it was a while back.
Like, was the letter directly from that person, or did they just have the
They
letter
have a
on
copy of
hand?
a letter sent out to all.
Okay, I was about to say, it's like, oh shit, Gonzo's playing big boy games now. He's got, like, fucking... I mean,
Oh.
it's the thing. I wouldn't not believe the idea that somebody in active military or somebody in the Pentagon liked, like,
There we go.
hentai or some shit. Like, I don't think that's that far out there.
Nah, it's just somebody who is connected a bit.
Because I think one stereotype that people think about the military is like they're all fucking stoic, Republican and shit like that. I'm here to tell you, half the military people I've met are nerds and weebs just like me.
I was going to say, for the first time in a long time, the military vote went Democrat in this past election. And, well, we all know who to thank for that.
Like, I've like, oh my God, I've met like some people in the military you wouldn't believe. Like, for one, bisexuality when it came to military members, more common than you think. But, you know, maybe locker room talk has a lot more stipulations to it than grab her by the pussy. Am I right, fella?
Yeah. I would say so.
That was a poorly timed joke. I'm sure people will hate me for it. People will love me for it. But
Well, hey, this will be like the last chance to get all the old Trump memes in before we get him out of here for good. So
I think there actually is a position where some people actually join the military to better their lives, and that it is probably more common that society's wretches or outcast are the kind of people who are material for the military because they have nothing else to lose.
well,
I don't
I mean,
know. Maybe that's like maybe
that's
America. Maybe okay. Like I guess I can reword this a little. Maybe America's finest can come from anywhere. There we go.
yeah, that's definitely a valid point. Is that I do know that quite a few people who, I don't know if this is still true or not, but in the past, you know, a lot of people that joined the military were like petty criminals who were like, you know, they were running with gangs in like cities like LA or Atlanta, and they're basically told like, well, okay, here's the deal. You can go to jail or you can actually get paid by the government to go kill foreigners or whatever it is. And so it's not like we all like the idea of the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed West Point graduates being on the front lines, and it's like that's not the case. There are definitely people like all of us.
We are sending. Actually, it's actually quite funny. But if you took the moniker for like on the Statue of Liberty, those are probably the people we're sending to fight the wars.
The
for.
tired, the poor, the huddled masses.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be so nice to actually live up to that motto again. Actually, you know what? While we're on the subject, let's just get to the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight. In addition to kind of discussing like where the big lie came from and how it can work. As I said, this is gonna be the last show we do where Donald Trump is president. So what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to go around the room, get an idea from everybody. What is the one thing you're looking forward to the most from the post-Trump America, if you will? Like, what is the one thing where it's like, okay, it's not necessarily something. It could be something that we're not going to see anymore. Like, I'm pretty sure we're not going to get any more rage tweets at 4:00 in the morning from Biden. I'm not even sure if he knows how to work Twitter. I think he has people that does that for him. I don't know. I mean, he seems like a pretty capable guy, but I don't really know if he's interested in tweeting out that stuff. And we all remember that W couldn't figure out how to use the Google, as he called it. But so yeah,
Or a
what is
segue. He kind of hurt himself the first time around.
Yeah. So yeah, what is so I'll go ahead and open up here. The thing that I'm most looking forward to in the post-Trump presidency is I no longer have to worry about my government well, I don't know this to be a certain, but this is something I think, I hope, I pray will happen. I don't have to worry about my government trying to propagate the big lie. Because as I said, everyone lies in their life. Politicians lie to us all the time. It's just kind of baked in. But like after Trump's inauguration, where he sends Sean Spicer up there and says, "Oh no, it was the biggest inauguration ever," despite all available evidence showing that no, it really wasn't. And then Kellyanne comes out and says, "Well, they're just alternative facts." That was the moment I knew, like, oh man, this is gonna be really, really
Painful.
Really rough 4 years. Because if they're willing to lie to us about something as petty and inconsequential as the crowd size at your inauguration, then what else are they willing to lie to us about? And it turns out quite a lot.
Yeah.
Now, do I expect this administration to be completely and honestly truthful about everything it does? Not really. It'd be nice, but again, I've seen this song and dance before. I know that there's going to be things that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and their cabinet lie to us about. That's going to happen. I know it, you know it, but I hope that it's not going to be something of its importance. I hope it's going to be lying about something like, those alt-right terrorists all died when their yacht just happened to sink. There wasn't like a SEAL team raid on them to kill them or anything like that. I don't want them to lie about things like, yeah, COVID is totally fine now and it's gone, even though we still have like 4,000 people a day dying from it.
I'm still in my self-isolation because this fucking president nearly fucking killed me.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go, guys. I mean, everyone still wants to defend Trump's COVID response. Well, it killed the soldier, and it may end up killing Gonzo. Hopefully it doesn't. We don't know that yet.
Supposedly, I've yet to feel any sort of symptoms. I'm just hoping that it's just an accidental contact with something, and so far it's supposedly you get symptoms at day 12, and today's been day 12, so
most people arguing, the virus would have killed those people anyway. They were old, yada yada this, yada yada that. I'm tired of that. Like,
I'm 31 going on 32.
I think one thing I'll be happy about is we'll have more people ready to fucking break bones over statements like that because they're not afraid anymore. And personally, open your fat fucking mouth, find out. Because I am sick and tired of people trying to say, "Oh, it would have been just as bad if Trump had done everything right." And I'm just like thinking, first off, if we had acted more accordingly, not near as many people would have died, which leaves open the possibility that the soldier would have lived a few more years. It opens up the possibility that, my artist never would have gotten COVID. It opens up the possibility that Scarlett never would have needed to be quarantined. It opens up the possibility that a friend I hold very near and dear, who's been in public care of elderly people, wouldn't currently be in quarantine. It opens up the possibility that my Trump-supporting friend, stupid as he is, wouldn't have ever wound up with COVID in the first place.
It opens up the possibility that we wouldn't have completely lost our entire society for a year. That we would still be able to go to like movie theaters and stuff like that, and we'd be able to go to sporting events. We wouldn't have to lock ourselves down. I mean,
that
we would
like, I do want to finish, right? So that possibility that these things did not even need to happen or wouldn't have happened is far greater than the idea of things would have been exactly this no matter what we did. I refuse to believe that. Because, well, people talk, oh, well, we weren't this way with fucking H1N1. We weren't this way with fucking Ebola. We weren't this way with yada, yada, yada. Yeah, because the virus never spread as rapidly as it did now.
Yeah, there was a plan set in place.
Yeah, there was a plan set in place. We immediately contained it. We got control of the situation. Like, no, we didn't. Like, at that point, when you start saying this shit to me, you got nothing. And I've called people like you on this all the goddamn time, and you can't give me one thing that suggests the idea that things wouldn't have been different. You just fucking say it. And it's worthless. It's worth about as much as a pile of dog shit frozen in the winter. You want to go and fish it out, be my fucking guest, but leave me out of it.
Yeah, that was one of the more annoying of the COVID hot takes is that, oh, well, we had H1N1, we had Ebola, and we didn't have to lock down. You know why we didn't have to lock down? Because we didn't fuck around with the response. We actually had a plan. Now, to be fair, those also weren't novel viruses. This was a completely new disease that we didn't really have any kind of preparation for or anything like that. But we still had a plan to deal with those diseases. We didn't try to bullshit our way out of it. At no point did President Obama go on national television and say, well, just drink some bleach if you got Ebola, you'll be fine. Okay, there was none of that bullshit. That didn't happen.
Or a premature declaration of, we're done, you're all good, and anything that happens afterwards, it's just Democratic hoax.
Yeah. At no point did they ever call it, say, oh, it's a hoax, it's a scam, it's a lie, they're just using it for the election. It's a fucking public health crisis. So,
yeah,
honestly, if Trump...
Fucking love how this thing that took all of our fucking lives, took people we cared about from us. Oh, it's just a fucking hoax.
It's insane.
In case you're wondering, I was pretending to strangle that person
tragedy.
to death.
That's not real.
Yeah.
Punchable faces exist. Punchable faces exist. There was a position. There was a position where I was 100% fucking Puritan against political non-violence, right? And I still have to be very careful with my words here because we're on a public platform that won't condone me saying certain things. But when it comes to my belief in why we riot, why we burn this shit down, why we act crazy sometimes, you've convinced me there's a reason. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah. And let's actually, I'll get to what I was going to say in a little bit, but so I'm looking forward to the government no longer trying to lie about me about really, really big and important things. No more big lies from the government. Sharp is looking for being able to kind of like not being afraid to call people out for their bullheaded beliefs. Gonzo, what is the one thing you're looking forward to the most after Trump is out of the White House in a few days?
That's a tough one. It's kind of similar to you guys. I kind of want a little bit more sanity because a lot of people just basically just started abandoning people that they have friendships with over because of how they thought, and basically abandoned everything and just made it their entire identity. I vote for Trump. I agree with everything he says. I'm going to buy all of his fucking merchandise, even though it may be made in a different fucking country than ours. Fucking flying him out, and I'll do anything he fucking says. I want less of that. Especially in both areas, both internet and in real life. Because unfortunately, the reason why we have that insurrection is because it's not easy to just say, oh, just get off the internet. You don't have to see this. Unfortunately, our internet is so ingrained into our lives, it's affecting reality now.
You could have said that in 2005. You'd have had a point. You could have said that in 2008. You'd have had a point. You would have been on the cupus. You would have been leaning, but you would have still had a point. You say that in 2015, jump off a bridge. Like, getting off the internet. I'm sorry, but when you give a fucking political hot take online, people can go after your job. That's a sign that the times have changed. And how about the fact that they can succeed in taking your job from you? That's a sign that the times have changed.
Absolutely.
And this will affect not just the Republicans, all the major Trumpers. It's all the people who would try to fucking ruin their jobs over something that they politically believe in. It's a major issue that where both sides are kind of guilty of this. And I kind of want this shit to not stop, because that would be crazy and be a bit of a dreamer. But a little bit lessen. Let's fucking just... Since Trump is no longer in office, and he'll probably be impeached, he will never run for office again, let's calm that down a little bit. And trying to, like, not ruin each other's lives over what we believe in.
One thing I actually need to change in order to reassure a more moderate or sane America is the idea that there are consequences for people that try to ruin waking life or the ability for another person to survive just because of their hot takes online. I do think that's a tinge too far. Now, of course, you'll always have those outliers, and I've had conversations with Scarlett where those outliers are justified, like people not wanting to work with white nationalists and stuff like that. But that's not what I'm talking about. My whole idea is if you're keeping those ideas to yourself, your anonymity shit posting on social media should be the equivalent of keeping those ideas to yourself, but it no longer is. Why? Because people break that anonymity, expose you, and to some degree, I think this enables radicalization and extremism for one reason. Any pure option of learning, adaptation, growth, reform, or forgiveness off the table from what you've just done. You've guaranteed us another white nationalist by taking away any option of them not being one. And here's why. Now, if they reject the camp they've been forcibly tied to, they've got no one to turn to and nothing to do.
That's a very good point on your part there, because one of the things that Tom Walker, through his character, the great Jonathan Pye, has often expressed is that there is an argument that a consequence of being so aggressive, of leftists in particular being aggressive with their views online, is that they can push well-meaning, relatively centrist people over to the right by saying that they're already there, by no virtue of the fact that they're not subscribing to whatever the woke puritarian view of the progressive wing is. And so then you end up with people saying like, well, gee, if Mr. Trump's a Nazi, then I guess I'm going to start goose stepping to work. That's going to show those punks. And yeah, you would think that people would be smart enough to kind of avoid that. You know, like if someone says like...
And my point comes in with not when you've started to dismantle any structure or stability they've had in their life and driven them insane. Sanity or rationality goes out the window then.
Well, exactly. It's like, though that was the point I was trying to make, is that you would think that, like, the mindset goes like, well, you would think if somebody heard that the person they liked is like a fascist, then they would go, well, gee, I just won't associate with that person anymore. And that does happen on occasion, but not when it's being shouted at in your face. Like if you tell someone like, hey, listen, I just thought you should know that this person that you're supporting, they support some rather questionable ideas, or ideas that are, they're not exactly conducive to liberal democracy. If you're told that, you'll probably think, well, gee, I didn't know that before, but with this information, maybe I should consider as to whether or not this is someone I want to support. On the other hand, if someone comes to you and says, if you subscribe to PewDiePie, then you're a racist because he said the N-word at one time on a stream, that's only going to serve to further reinforce your notions and be like, okay, you know what? Why should I listen to you? If you're just going to criticize me and try to shame me, why should I even bother coming over to your side if that's how you're going to come at me? And that is the one thing I watched.
Yeah, like I actually have clout in this race, right? Because like when it comes to like fucking debate class and you with political science, you'll probably agree with me on this.
Yeah.
When it comes to delivering effective rhetoric, empathy is like Professor Utonium's secret ingredient, Chemical X. Without empathy in fucking rhetoric, you don't have anything.
Nope.
And the one thing hatred conducively is opposed to is empathy.
I'll be right back, by the way. So just keep going, and I'll give you my thoughts when I get back.
And like the whole thing is, right? Without empathy, that rhetoric falls apart. So when it comes to conducively not being on the side of more moderate or more reasonable people that can be talked through these issues, automatically, if you're not there, what you're pushing is quintessentially anti-rhetoric. You are literally upturning, sabotaging, and destroying any rhetoric to shift the scale in favor of your political position. Which is what these people were trying to do, right? But you came in and you were like, no, we can't cater to moderates. They're the same thing as Nazis. Well, you know what? These moderates just got rid of Donald Trump for you. What do you think of them now? Because if you're still going to treat them like shit, I'm more conducive to locking you in a fucking trunk than listening to you. But there's an upside. Because people like I, Helios, Gonzo, Scarlet, and Ren exist, they can turn to us instead of turning to you. And we'll steer them straight. We'll try and help them out when we can. We'll try and right the wrongs. And you'll stay mad. Like, but what we're going to say is being moderate is not a sin. There are times where it could get annoying because, you know, certain people, they're going to feel like you don't understand the political facsimiles of the argument they're trying to make. And that sometimes being moderate can poison the well. That's true. But a lot of the times, moderate can also give a much needed perspective. For example, what matters more? This communist revolution or ensuring your kids grow up fair and right? What matters more? The idea that Colin Kaepernick took a knee at the Super Bowl, or the fact that he gets to speak in this country and we have to protect and find that idea precious. By the way, these aren't radical left positions like Trump supporters will tell you. That's a moderate position right there. You don't have to agree with the fact that Colin Kaepernick took a knee. It's just that if you're pro-America, if you're pro-American ideas, you are pro the idea that he had that freedom of speech. No exceptions. No exceptions. Because if you start making caveats and exceptions for corporations, I've made my point, I've drawn my line in the sand, right? If you're not going to support people's ability to protest publicly, and you're going to say, oh, well, they shouldn't do it this way, they shouldn't do it this way, they shouldn't do it this way, motherfuckers, show them how they're supposed to do it. You're the fucking know-it-all that's got it all figured out. Show them how they're supposed to do it. Show them what the acceptable way to do it is. Although I've got a feeling I already know. It's in a corner, isolated, where no one will see them, where nobody will see them handing out pamphlets, where no one will hear them on their megaphone, where no one will effectively see the message they're trying to send. So by de facto, no one heard what they're trying to say, and that doesn't disrupt your comfortable little life, right? Now, if I'm wrong, prove me wrong. Don't just sit here and bitch and say I've misrepresented you. It's your fucking job to represent you. Get off your lazy ass. If you're not your own representative, you're your own worst enemy, you fucktard. And I'm sorry if people were offended by that, but
I don't think they should.
Sometimes
you're pissed off, and justifiably so.
Sometimes you have to talk that way to people. It's the only way they respond.
You have to. Yeah, Lewis Black pretty much said it best, that all the foul language that you don't want to hear about, they're the kind of words that are supposed to represent frustration, anger, rage.
Yeah. Which is why, like, I get why people have a problem with casual cursing and things like that, because to some degree, frustration or rage needs to be expressed. I think I found a fine line for the fact that I feel chill cursing, when you're cursing but you're calm, can express, yeah, I'm frustrated with these issues, but I'm not frustrated at you. And the fact that I'm not frustrated at you is created with the fact that I'm talking to you, not at you. But make no mistake, I am frustrated. Don't think I'm not. And oftentimes that's actually what makes me mad at certain lefty causes, is thinking we're not trying. We're not there trying to help. Is that thinking the only way we could help is by 100% agreeing with everything they're doing? That's how a cause goes to die. Thinking one shoe size fits all, and that's the way we're going to win. I'm sorry, you don't agree with that in education, so get off your high horse. Please. We're trying to take this and bring it somewhere that matters, right? When I say we want to bring it back to a moderate sphere, I'm not saying we're suddenly going to pretend like racial issues aren't a thing. We've learned. Trust me when I say we've learned. I'm not saying when we go back to moderate, we're going to pretend like gay people or LGBT people aren't still mistreated in society. We absolutely believe that at this point. I'm not saying when people need to calm down or cool down, that means they need to be silent or not talk at all. You need to talk in a way people can understand and relate to. If you are not trying to help people, you're part of the problem. And rhetoric and how you portray that rhetoric will give off a particular mood. If you're too aggressive, people are just going to assume you want to hurt them.
All right, now I'm back.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's a lot to unpack, but essentially what I said was, yeah, people who shame and treat these moderate people like trash are only hurting the primary rhetoric, which has to come from a place of empathy in order for the rhetoric to mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Now,
You see, I'm in an interesting situation where I live around people who just see moderates as either a joke or the problem.
yeah, I know. The problem with the idea that children shouldn't be as politicized as they are. The problem with the idea that pretending that doctors don't know anything is a problem. The problem with the idea that people have forgotten that being okay with Colin Kaepernick taking a knee is still a moderate position.
I was going to say is that one of the various memes I've seen come out of the insurrection is that the people who think the insurrection is okay are the same people who think that a black guy taking a knee before a football game
They are
is
not.
disrespecting the country. Yeah.
They are not.
Here's the one caveat I want to emphasize, though. The true believers, as in the people, and what we now said the true believers, you know what I mean. I mean the insurrectionists, the people of that caliber. They cannot be shamed. You cannot shame these people into seeing they're better angels. We know this because they take after Trump, and Trump himself cannot be shamed. Like, hey, Susan Collins, remember when you voted no on impeachment the first time, and you said that he learned his lesson? Yeah. Look how well it turned out. He learned his lesson, all right. He learned that there's pretty much nothing that he can do short of actual insurrection that Republicans won't give him a proper punishment for. Now, we'll see how well that holds up after January 20th, but I digress. The point being is that there are some people where one of the reasons that people, again, they try to really be so combative with people is that you want to try to shame them. You want to try to shame them into seeing they're better angels. And that's simply not going to work with people that are so committed to a particular ideology, and especially one that's as ingrained in what we call oppositional defiant disorder as Trumpism is. Oppositional defiant disorder, by the way, is basically this idea that you're going to disobey the orders of whoever's in charge simply because they come from somebody who's in charge. More so if they're somebody that you didn't happen to vote for. So when you protest against things like mask ordinances, you're not doing it because you think, well, I don't know, this is really the best way to mitigate the pandemic. You're just doing it because, the government can't tell me what to do. And there's a lot of reasons for why this came about. Our guy, Tom Nichols, frequently believes that a lot of the people, when it comes to the true believers, the people that protest the lockdowns and so on, the common denominator is it's what he calls the lost boys. It's this idea that of adults, predominantly men, who were never properly socialized and never really properly had the emotional maturity to kind of deal with hardships in the adult world. In a related story, he has a particularly dim view of Edward Snowden, because you may recall that Snowden initially applied to be a foot soldier, to be a soldier, and ultimately he had to withdraw because he injured himself, and that's when he ultimately started his career in the CIA, and or was it the NSA or whatever, and one thing led to another, and now he can never come back to America lest he be immediately arrested and thrown in jail because he leaked all the things to WikiLeaks. Nichols believes that the reason he did this wasn't necessarily because he was being patriotic or he wanted to stand up for American liberties. He believes that it was because he was kind of acting out, in the sense that he was denied this chance to really fulfill this idea of manhood, and so he chose to act out instead. And now, I don't personally agree with that sentiment. I don't think that necessarily. I mean, there may be a part of it, but I think that Snowden was legitimately concerned for the most part with the impact on civil liberties it has.
I think in the situation, it was like Snowden evaluated the situation, which is why he even tried to sneak that data out in the first place. Mm-hmm. He was like, once I do this, I can't come home. I'm forever ostracized. They'll kill me. They'll look for my family. They'll look for my girlfriend. I can't go back after I do this. But at the same time, if I don't, it'll weigh on my conscience forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at the same time, I do think, though, that his idea of like the Lost Boys, it does apply to the insurrectionists. And he put a Twitter thread about this up, which I'm going to read to you guys now. He put this up on the 14th, so a little more than a week after the insurrection. So the Twitter thread, Tom Nichols said this: watching footage of the loser storm overrunning the Capitol during the beer belly putsch, I am struck again by how much of what plagues us is an addiction to this narcissistic idea that everyone is the most important person ever, that everyone should be the boss of everything. The raging narcissism, particularly of the cosplaying men who now deny that they wanted no part of any of the seditious stuff, is striking. Men who have a huge reserve of self-regard that does not extend to shaving or wearing a clean shirt or other basic signs of adulthood. These are people, again, especially the men, trapped in the eternal drama of adolescence. They are creatures of a leisure society, bored by the ordinariness of life, angry that the world is not more interesting, and that others refuse to pay them their heroic due. As Eric Hoffer noted, this is the fetid breeding ground of extremism. Faith in a holy cause is to a considerable extent a substitute for the lost faith in ourselves. Take away our holy duties and you leave our lives puny and meaningless. Even in 1951, Hoffer knew the danger of society of bored children. There is perhaps no more reliable indicator of a society's ripeness for a mass movement than the prevalence of unrelieved boredom. This, not rights or freedom, was what past years of Trumpism are about. There is no seriousness here, no sense of injustice, no actual injury to rights, merely the aggrieved boredom of men and some women who never learned that life is not ceaselessly interesting and dramatic, that life Even the best life is boring and repetitive on most days. This is why the legal and social response should be swift and clear, to remind people that life is not a TV show. It is not Twitter dunks and Facebook memes, to show that hurting other people out of boredom and childish narcissism has real consequences. People who want to be heroes seem to have no patience with a normal workplace, or the self-disciple involved in showing up and doing your best, no matter self-discipline rather, involved in showing up and doing your best no matter what the job is. After all, Thor and Captain America didn't have to listen to their supervisor. But life is heroic exactly when it is not dramatic. Taking care of your loved ones, looking after a sick friend, letting someone go ahead of you at a stop sign, holding the door for someone at a store. Adults know this. Stunted, selfish, undisciplined, stupid adolescents do not. I am exhausted by turning on the news and realizing that the blessings of life in a liberal democracy have also produced a stubborn knot of bored children who think that guns and flags and dumb slogans will give their lives meaning. All I can do is suggest to other people in the society to treat these brutal, overgrown adolescents with as much distance as possible, to show them by example what stoicism and seriousness look like, to be the adults. I know it's hard. I'm not consistent about it myself. But amidst all the calls for unity, it's important to remember that unity and understanding can only happen between adults who agree to live peacefully. The people who defend sedition, and especially those who instigated it, are not those people. Those are armed toddlers. I don't know what will change us. I sometimes think that a bit of social pressure on a man to wash his face in the morning and to dress differently from his preteen son might help. Other days, I think that nothing will work and pure vulgar decadence will just end us. And don't get me wrong, I don't underestimate the danger these people pose. They have threatened me directly and many other people I know. But there's not much you can do about that. But I don't have to pretend that dangerous means serious and worthy of respect. So maybe, now and then, we should all ask ourselves if we're taking things seriously enough, and if they're the right things to be taken seriously, and whether we are setting that example for others around us. Again, not sure I do that enough myself. None of this means not to be lighthearted. I am so often utterly immature and unseriousness. But when it comes to living as an American, I hope I'm as serious as can be. It's something we can all do, and we can insist on it from others.
You know, you saying that brings something out in me that feels like it has to be said, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of people that made the mistake of voting for this tyrant. Hell, one of our friends is one of those people.
Yes.
So I have to sit here and ask the question of, is it mature for me to sit here and say, oh, well, you voted for Trump in the first place, therefore you can't be redeemed? I feel in my core, that would be something I would have to punch myself in the jawline for. I would have to travel back in time. I'd have to be like, motherfucker.
If I was right in front of you, I would have punched you.
Yeah.
I swear. Listen, man. Man. Especially coming from where I come from, being brought up in a world where redemption is impossible because bad thing already happened.
Yeah, not only that, I've spent all this time trying to set up the evaluation in you as my friend that you are not worthless, that redemption is not impossible, and what a hypocritical thing it would be of me to do, to turn my back on you just because you voted for Trump. The thing that a huge collective policy of leftist children will disown me for. Because here's my thing. Here's my thing, right? Helios brought something out in me with that statement that I feel bears repeating. It's not just right-wingers who are children. It's leftists that will not produce the path of redemption, are too stubborn to do so for the people who did turn their back on Trump. Those are our allies. I'm just going to say it. If you said no to the insurrection, there's hope for you.
Yes.
Period. You know what? That's my fucking olive branch. Why? Because I'm a fucking adult. And I'm tired of saying I'm not. You know why? With every fiber of my being, I felt like punching people in the face. I've never fucking done it because I'm an adult. I recognize the consequences of that. I recognize the people around me it could hurt if I ever once made that decision.
Mm-hmm. So
do you? Like,
yeah. So yeah, that's basically what Nichols is asking there. Is that So I personally believe in second chances. Okay, I believe that America is the land of second chances. I believe that if you recognize your mistakes and you're contrite about doing better, you should be given that chance to be able to go home and do better next time. Now, in the case of Donald Trump, I would argue he's been given like a billion chances. So, as far as you're concerned, Don, I think we're good. Okay, go fuck off to Fort Leavenworth and rot. All right, but recall the Bannon line that I mentioned when talking about the Lincoln Project. You know, people asking what the Lincoln Project did. The Lincoln Project was able to convince 12% of the people who voted in Trump for 2016 to not vote for him again or vote for somebody else. All right. And that ultimately proved to be the difference. Now, when it comes to, like I said on last week when we talked about the insurrection, like if you went to the protest, if you went to the rally and you stood outside and you sang your songs and waved your signs and did your chants and that was it, you know what? You're fine. And I do know that there were people, because I've read some reports, there were some people who even if they actually took part of the march, they only went so far toward the Capitol building before they were like, okay, you know what? This is going to get really ugly. We want part of this. And they turned around. Okay. I still think that you're a jackass, mind you, and I won't feel too bad for you if there is consequences for you down the line. But if you didn't go in the Capitol building, you're fine. I mean, I'll just give you a disapproving frown and shake of my head.
When it comes as far as my agenda and what I care about, if you turned around, if you said no, that was a turning point for you, as far as I'm concerned. That was when you said, you know what? I'm being an asshole. This is wrong.
Yeah, I didn't sign up for armed insurrection against my country. So,
you know what? Like, let's be real here. Practically, that's all I want from people. Like, I'm not going to sit here and demand the world of people like some leftists have done when it's so impractical. What I'm going to demand from you is what you can do, which is do the right fucking thing in the end. It's the most any of us could ask for.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you're like the people who, if you're a part of the people who went in the Capitol building, or you gave and you've been arrested and now you're begging Trump for a pardon because you're saying, Don, we went in there because you told us to. You got to pardon us. First of all, good fucking luck. And second of all, fuck you. Like, there was this video that
I also don't think I'm a monster for telling you to go fuck yourself after that, because I just outlined your choice was, what your chance was, and you blew it. Like, that's my point, though. Producing the opportunity for redemption is giving people the chance to do right. If they don't, that's on them. But if they do, you have a moral obligation to encourage that kind of behavior. And if you don't, you're no friend of mine.
And it also is important that we don't just like completely excuse what happened. Like, there was a video like the Lincoln Project retweeted over the weekend, and it was from a CNN interview with a Capitol police officer who was at the Capitol building during the insurrection, and he was being attacked by the insurrectionists. And it got to the point where he was like trying to take his gun and be like, shoot him with his gun. And I guess some of the people in the crowd, they recognized that this guy was now in like a real dangerous situation. And they actually formed a circle around him to kind of get the other people to back off. It's like, listen, back off. Don't hurt this guy anymore. And they helped him up and helped him, get out of there. Ooh. And his response to those protesters, to the insurrectionists rather, and I'm quoting directly, "Thank you for helping me, but fuck you for being there." So, I mean, honestly, that perfectly sums up my attitude to everyone who went to DC on the 6th but didn't go in the Capitol building. Thank you for not engaging in an insurrection, but still, fuck you for being there in the first place.
And you know what? That's as far as it's going to go. That's your consequence, because as far as I'm concerned, you're going to get a slap on the wrist compared to the people that fucking attacked the Capitol. Why? Because personally, I think that's what's right. If you changed your mind and decided to save someone's life from those people, some degree, not a full degree, but some degree of proportional mercy is required.
Yes.
Because we have to set the example.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like, no, period. Any leftist that is saying we don't have to do shit is a leftist who never wanted to set the example worth a fuck. And if you don't want to set the example, you're not helping.
Mm-hmm. But I honestly find it like one of the more interesting, hilarious things. This kind of dovetails into what Tom said about how these people are immature people who don't recognize that the real world can't be as exciting as Facebook all the time. That there's more important things than how many retweets you get on Twitter. So
I think, honestly, I think that's wrong too, Helios. It's not the fact that the world isn't exciting. It's that we haven't matured enough to find out what really is exciting. Like, when you're out canvassing, when you're out fighting for actual political change, to some people, that's really fucking exciting. You're essentially a part of a social movement that could very well change the course of history.
Well, you'll hear no argument from me from that. I think Tom would agree as well. Like what he's saying is that these are people who stormed the Capitol building ultimately care more about how many hits they get on their Twitch stream rather than whether or not they're actually going to go out and do something that can materially affect the democratic process.
Essentially, here's what's funny, right? In their pursuit of the spectacular, they're mediocre. Because, like, think about this. When the height of your desire is, I want 200 followers on Twitch. Like, ooh, that's pathetic. And it's funny because somebody who sets the example of what's really worth things in life is ironically a Twitch streamer.
Yeah,
that decided to canvass in Georgia. Doesn't matter how you feel about him. He did the action none of you were willing to.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to be your example, and you have to begrudgingly accept that. Like,
yeah. And meanwhile, over on the Trumpy right, you guys may recall from our when we did the React to the Cringe compilation, you may recall the TikTok guy Mike Blaze MAGA. He was the guy in the hat and the fedora who put together the really, really strange pro-Trump videos. I happened to take a look at his TikTok to see what he's been up to ever since the election. First of all, he does do a couple of videos where he says, like, January 6th, it's going down. And then he does another couple of videos where he tries to... It's very interesting. Like, he doesn't try to really condemn the insurrection. He just says, well, Black Lives Matter, they burned down, Foot Lockers. So it's like, that's one of the more hottest takes to come out here, to act like, as bad as the riots during the George Floyd protests were, and, we condemned them here, acting like somehow burning down a Foot Locker is equivalent to attacking the U.S. Capitol building. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a degree of difference there. One is bad.
Yeah, that's what I ended up fucking getting when I was questioning the Legion, because they were also trying to say, well, they're pretty much bringing up examples of a bunch of politicians, quotes taken out of context possibly, trying to justify... trying to incite people into burning these buildings down and all the Black Lives Matter protests and Antifa protests and shit like that. That's what ended up like fucking getting to me, because it's like they were trying to say, well, they did it too, is pretty much the go all excuse of why they ended up doing the insurrection.
Yeah, and I actually wound up taking a position I feel matters like just about as much, which is, yeah, those people were setting a really bad example. Fuck them too.
Yeah, exactly. It's
and this is the thing that's broken, but even fucking Destiny has to bring this up. It's like, you don't have to pick one or the other. There are times where you can argue a position of advocating both. That's just not the way.
That is a very, now I'm just thinking, that's a very childish thing of like,
you can hate.
Well, those guys, they were able to do that, but like,
you can hate, right, that people stormed the Capitol, right? You can hate that with all your heart. That does not mean you have to support BLM. That does not mean you have to support any of the riots that took place in Ferguson or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking, well, how come, the can get away with violent protests and and conservatives can't, you can say maybe we shouldn't be doing either. Maybe
In
no
fact,
one should be rioting.
Yeah, it's actually been my position. I think it's really fucking bizarre when you're sitting there cheering on the idea that society is breaking down when you need society to survive.
Mhm.
And I've always thought it was idiotic when people were cheering on a riot that's supposed to further their rhetoric. And what winds up is people, the position of their rhetoric, wind up being suppressed because they incited riots. And I will admit, there is this hypocrisy that exists on the left that really has to be addressed. When it comes to you inciting a riot, it's justified. When it comes to MAGAs inciting a riot, oh, you're right here with us, right? You're not the goddamn hypocrite who is setting the poor example. I'm looking at you.
Totally.
I'm
It's not
looking at
like
you. Don't think I don't see you. I don't
all of
trust
this
you.
thinking is like just there's just some guy in the back with like dyed hair.
It's like,
Or-
buddy, if you weren't wearing a mask, I'd be punching you square in the jaw because I can't identify who you are, and that's the only thing that's keeping you safe.
all I'm thinking is just it's dude like a black hoodie with dyed hair and a mask on his
Like,
face. Is just like.
but here's the thing, right?
What?
Here's the thing, right? I didn't learn to and here's the thing, right? I don't still look at clips of anti-fascist movements or BLM burning their community to the ground or attacking random people and thinking, yeah, that's justified. No, that's not at all how this works. It's just what I think has changed. I don't think the quote-unquote left is violent when I see that now. I used to think that's what this meant. What it really means is when we're talking about holding assholes to account, the left has quite a bit to answer for if they're going to get on track with us. Like, that being said, I have to be very careful with how I word things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got a lot to answer for when you can stand there and see a quote-unquote protester beam a guy over the head with a fire extinguisher that's trying to stop his apartment from burning down. Yes, those clips exist. Yes, that is something that happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin. No, I don't support it. Yes, I think that was vile.
Mm-hmm.
If I knew the motherfucker behind that ski mask, he'd be eating through a straw. Because you don't do that to people. That, whatever the fuck that was, whatever fucking reason riots start for, a person who would do something that vile was an asshole looking for social media clout. Was an asshole looking for some kind of catharsis he really didn't need.
Yep.
And to sit here acting like there aren't young, naive, childish people that are doing these things for all the wrong reasons. No, that's actually the reason we got here in the first place, and we definitely need to address it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's about time there was some sway to talking about that. And if not, you're part of the problem.
And to Joe Biden's credit, he has come out repeatedly and denounced the rioters and stuff like that. Whereas you haven't really seen the same happen from the right in regards to the insurrection. I mean, there's been token statements, but they've always tried to pivot. Like Josh Hawley, to bring back Josh Hawley, it wasn't even hours after they literally just got back into the Capitol building and immediately was like trying to say, oh, no, that wasn't Trump supporters out there. That was Antifa in the skies. It's like, dude, shut up. Okay. And now you're going out here complaining about how you can't get a book deal, how everyone is like, Twitter is taking down people, censoring people. It's like, I mean, look, okay, let's talk about Trump's Twitter ban. Okay. Once again, Tom Walker, through Jonathan Pye, brought up a instance about how ultimately it could backfire because you have the sense that now Trump's not going to be putting his idiocy out in public for all to see. Now he may be able to go to somewhere, maybe not Parler, because that's kind of looking for a new host right now. But Gab's
It's back
still
online, according to
Gab
the New York
has
Post.
Gab
It
has
came
its
back
own
online.
servers. It's going to take a lot more to shut them down.
Yeah, I think everyone just kind of forgot Gab existed. I think Parler was an offshoot of Gab, and
That's
I'm
a
not quite
mistake.
sure why. Well, I know why. It's because Dan Bingo Boingo wanted his own platform, but I digress.
I think
But-
Parler actually wanted something loopier than Gab, because as bizarre as it is, Gab, at the end of the day, stopped being as batshit as Parler became. And I think that's because most of the batshit people that wanted to be even more batshit than Gab would allow went on to Parler. And Gab, they just keep pushing this idea, oh, we're this freedom of speech website, things like that. Not saying they're good, but this is kind of like the switching from Fox News to OAN argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
Parler by proxy was worse, because there was a point you could hold Andrew Torba more to account than the guy who started Parler. And that's of significant concern. In fact, I actually think the reason Twitter didn't ban Trump early on was because of the same reasons Jack Dorsey had stated. I actually believe Twitter when they say, well, could you imagine this platform banning the most politically prominent person in the world? What kind of precedent that would set? You're not wrong for feeling that way. Like, you got a point, but what else are we supposed to do?
Mm-hmm. And it's like, ultimately, I think we've established that it's going to take a lot for Twitter to ban you. Like, because one of the things I've seen from people like Don Jr. say is like, oh, well, how come the CCP can still have a Twitter account? Why aren't they banned from Twitter? And so on and so forth.
I made that argument for a different reason, because of the fact, like, if you're going to set the precedent, right? If somebody does something vile enough, it doesn't matter what position of authority they're in, they're not going to have a Twitter.
Yeah.
That was fine by me. The question was, were they going to be consistent with that value?
Well, it seems as of right now, the standard is simple. Don't incite an armed overthrow of the United States government, and you can have a Twitter account. Okay, the CCP, for all the bad things they've done, haven't yet tried to overthrow the American government. I imagine if we ever get into a war with China, they probably won't have a Twitter account anymore. So that's kind of the standard right now. It's like all the people, freaking out over, it's Trump's not being censored. Okay, Trump wasn't kicked off Twitter because he's like, well, I don't agree with the idea that we should take down statues. Okay, no, he was thrown off Twitter because he incited an overthrow of the government. All right, and look, I don't believe in cancel culture. I think cancel culture is hypocritical. It causes more problems than it solved. This is the one time where I will say cancel culture is necessary. If you try to overthrow the United States government, you deserve to be canceled.
Well,
okay?
at that point, we're not even talking about consequence for your actions, right? Because now we're at a point that's so severe, we can't trust you to keep holding on to that megaphone. We don't know what the fuck you're going to say next. If you plotted an insurrection this time, what are you doing next time? Yeah, so I need you to straight out just fucking kill Joe Biden. Everybody aim their guns at his car. Like, kill that man.
Yeah. I mean,
like,
and again,
where's it going to stop? Where's it going to stop after he says yes, insurrection?
And again, you have people that were arrested for storming the Capitol building that are saying right now that Trump should pardon them and they're literally saying the reason they were there is because Trump told them to be there, which I'm thinking is going to go great in his impeachment defense.
Which, by the way, was the primary reason to argue for the 25th or impeachment. Yeah. Because if Trump had the power to pardon, he absolutely would have tried to pardon all those people.
He might still. I mean, the rumor is that he's going to pardon Steve Bannon because it turns out that Build the Wall was, surprise, surprise, a huge fucking grift.
By the way, I want to make a point of the fact that presidential pardons used in this manner definitely should be looked at, because when you're this goddamn bad, and at the end of the day, you're still getting the power to pardon all the people that did that shit, I think it's fair to ask, what real justice do we have in this system?
Hang on, I'm still trying to figure out. Trump's getting impeached. Wouldn't that strip him of the pardon power?
Okay,
If he was fully impeached, yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. Let's talk about the impeachment trial for a bit here, because this is going to go a little bit unusually. First of all, there's one reason and one reason only why it's not starting until the 19th. That's because Mitch McConnell has the Senate out on vacation. This is the same Mitch McConnell that apparently is fed up with Trump and can't wait to drop him like a hot potato. Well, apparently he could afford to wait a whole fucking week after the House passed the impeachment vote.
It apparently doesn't matter if another insurrection happens. It also apparently doesn't matter if he attempts to pardon each and every single person that took part in that event.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, 10 House Republicans did vote to impeach the president, which is the most bipartisan impeachment in the history of the United States. So make of that what you will. But anyway,
they're all traitors here, Leos.
Yeah.
Well, only the
Goddamn.
ones. Well, yeah, I'm about to say only the ones that. Yeah, I was gonna say at this point, if you honestly didn't vote to impeach the president, and I find it such full. Okay, so there's currently 4 caucuses right now in the Republican side of the House. You have the true believers still, so you still have your Jim Jordans, your Matt Gaetzes, your Devin Nunes's. You know, the people like, oh, I still believe in Trump, and oh, was Antifa trying to get the nude pictures of him or whatever. Then you have the people that are the actual patriots. So Liz Cheney, even though I don't believe for a second that she's doing this for no other reason than the fact that Kevin McCarthy is about to lose his fucking job as Republican majority leader. Both Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell are in for a very, very cold winter. I can tell you that right now. Okay, because McCarthy, no one in the Republican caucus likes him right now. Because Kevin McCarthy, half of the Republican caucus are the true believers, and they think that he's in league with George Soros and Kenyan sleeper agent Barack Hussein Obama and the Illuminati. And the other half hates him because he won't get rid of those fucking true believer idiots like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So he's probably going to be out of a job sooner rather than later. Mitch McConnell, on the other hand, he knows that the long-term position of the GOP is completely fucked. He knows that there's going to be quite a few vulnerable Senate seats coming up in 2022. And the only way at this point to really get the money, because that's the way that McConnell has always kept the Senate caucus in line, is through money. By telling these senators, listen, if you vote yes on this bill of legislation, I will personally finance your re-election campaign. You got nothing to worry about. And that worked for years until 2020, when all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, why am I having to put money in Lindsey Graham's campaign? Why do I have to put money in, Martha McSally's campain? I have to put money in my own campaign. These are all red states, or at least I thought they were. So now McConnell knows that if he wants to get that fundraising, he's going to have to continue the GOP's fundraising, current fundraising shtick. And if you've seen literally any fundraising email from any Republican candidate for the past 6 months, it's all been the same thing. Trump's the greatest, Trump's the greatest, Trump's the greatest, Trump's the greatest. It's whatever Trump says, we believe. Again, that was the official party platform of the Republican Party as adopted at their convention. So Mitch knows that
if the Senate's moving to impeach him, that line of rhetoric will no longer work for donations.
Exactly. So that's kind of where, and he also knows that if they don't, now things have just gotten so bad and so disastrous that if they don't convict Trump, then they can pretty much kiss any idea that the GOP is a national party. I told you guys this is coming for a while now.
Okay, can we just get a Photoshop meme of the point where in Joker where he shoots the talk show host in the face?
Oh God.
You've just got freaking fucking House of Representatives leader Nancy Pelosi on the Joker's face, and then Mitch McConnell's the talk show host, and she just holds the gun up to his head. She's like, "You get what you fucking deserve."
My God. Oh my God, that's gonna get us. I think that's gonna get the FBI calling That's probably get maybe after wait until things calm down, because as things stand right now, I think the FBI might be giving us a call if we did that. But
No,
that is
I'm not
what it is.
saying we do it, but like memes like that exist everywhere, and I don't
Oh,
know
I
if
know, I
FBI
know.
calls
Yeah.
were being made about the fucking
I mean,
joke.
yikes! People continue calling Mitch McConnell a fucking turtle. I mean, what's that? What's that?
We need better
What's that
memes for
gotta
Mitch
say?
McConnell. We need better memes for Mitch McConnell. Like, how about how fucked he is right now?
Well, the Lincoln Project likes to use Moscow Mitch during the impeachment. during the first
Moscow Mitch is good, but like the reason I brought up that Joker meme is you really need memes that embody how fucked Mitch McConnell is right now.
Well, I'm
Just
sure
how many corners of the world are seeking to eat his balls. Like, holy Christ.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind that McConnell, even though he no longer has the majority, he's still going to be doing whatever he can to play fuck around. Because consider this: when Joe Biden gets sworn in on January 20th, we're not going to have pretty much anyone in the executive branch other than him. There's not going to be a Secretary of Homeland Security. There's not going to be a Secretary of Energy or of Health and Human Services or of State or anything. And the reason is because usually it's tradition during the final days of the administration to confirm all the appointees for the next guys so they can just get into the White House and get right to work. That hasn't happened yet. And again, the Senate's out until the 19th. So really the only hope that Biden has for starting his term with something resembling a staffed cabinet is a unanimous consent motion that would have to be passed on the day of the freaking inauguration. So now, for what it's worth, Biden has.
Tell me something. Who's that got to come from?
That's going to come from. Well, that's the other part of it, because you remember that technically the Democrats.
Because here's the thing, right? Pelosi hitched her wagon to Biden. I doubt she's going to work to sabotage him.
Well, no, but so here's something to keep in mind. The Democrats won the runoffs in Georgia. They have the 51-50 majority. Warnock and Ossoff aren't going to be sworn in until the 22nd, because that's when these things go. So the 22nd.
So until they have that Senate majority, they still have to work with McConnell, who's going to try and play fuck around.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, Biden apparently has asked McConnell if, while they're doing the impeachment trials, they can also do the confirmation hearings. And McConnell said to Biden that will probably be possible, because again, these two actually have something of a working relationship here. So
yeah, McConnell's not going to try and fuck Biden over as much as he tried to fuck over Obama.
Yeah, well, we hope not anyway. But yeah, it could very well be that this for like the next few weeks, the Senate could be like, okay, in the morning we're going to do the confirmation hearings, and in the afternoon we're going to do the impeachment trial or something like that. So
I hope McConnell realizes the stress of the situation, like with his greed and everything, and his desire for money and political power, that if he in any way tries to sabotage the Biden presidency, he could very well implode America as a whole, which will mean consequences upon consequences for him.
Well, again, Mitch McConnell, he's the kind of guy that when he wakes up in the morning, he doesn't say to himself, oh, gee, I'm really fucking over America here. I should stop this. He says, I'm fucking over America. Yippee!
But here's the question, right? Even a bullshitter or a fucker knows when to stop. Does McConnell know that if he fucks the American people this hard, they're coming for his head? Like,
I'll tell you this. Mitch McConnell is a very transactional person. He calculates out. He doesn't make a move without calculating it out like 5 steps ahead. For all the people that like to claim that Trump is actually playing 3-dimensional chess, Mitch McConnell is one of the few people that actually does it. So he's not going to do anything that could seriously impact the chances that the GOP will get the majority back in one or both houses in this presidential term.
So in most positions, it's argued if he wants the GOP to ever have a chance again, he has to work with Biden.
Yeah, and again, that's part of the reason why he's in such a tight spot right now, because the Trump brand has now become so toxic, because everything Trump touches dies has now come to bite the GOP in the ass. But the problem is that the Trump voters are really the only people that can still provide the fundraising that he's going to need for these campaigns. So he's had to figure out how to work around that. And he's not necessarily in danger of getting voted out of the Senate because Kentucky, at the end of the day, is still the reddest of the red. But if he can't navigate this minefield, the GOP may not get the majority back anytime soon. And even if they do, it might not be him as the majority leader. It could be like Rand Paul as a majority leader, which is fucking scary, honestly. But anyway, so that's why I say again, McConnell's in for a damn cold winter.
When it comes to this situation, McConnell's worst enemy of all is the one enemy he can't fight, which is time.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, that man's gonna die.
He is older than Biden, so
yeah. He probably doesn't have very many good years left on this earth. So even if he is the one Kentucky will constantly reelect, what happens when he's gone? What does that mean for the climate? What happens to the GOP in general?
That's a very
jackass coordinating it for the longest time now.
Yeah.
They don't have anyone to fill McConnell's shoes.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to replace Mitch McConnell. I know that there's people in the Senate that would like to try, but well, anyway, so right now the GOP is going to have the really tough spot of, and to kind of give you an idea how it's both not completely hopeless for the Republican Party, but also how cowardly these people are. I can tell you for a fact that when it came to the House vote, only 10 Republicans voted to impeach. I can tell you this for a fact. If it was a secret ballot, half the Republican caucus in the House would have voted to impeach. Again, this is based on information that has been given to me. If there was a secret ballot in the House, half of the Republican caucus would have voted to impeach Donald Trump. Okay?
Yep.
So why doesn't it happen? Because these representatives are now getting death threats. And this is not something that's relatively new, because I told you all the story about the one Republican representative who offered the mildest critique of Trump at one of his town halls. He just said, listen.
You know what? I actually want to make a point here on this.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when years ago, before the whole Trump sensation started, we had like way, way, way more accounts online of people talking about how they were having their homes called, how they were getting death threats and stuff from people online?
Mm-hmm.
Ironic where this headed to, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
it didn't go away, and it always did matter.
Yeah, except now it's not the Democrats getting the death threats, it's you, and they're coming from your own voters, your own constituents. So
and because of the culture you established, you have to sit here and pretend like that's not an active threat to you.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you this. Every single member of the Lincoln Project gets death threats on almost a daily basis. It doesn't stop them from doing their job. Okay, they are not deterred in any way, shape, or form.
Do you know why this probably stops the Trump camp Republicans from doing their job?
Why?
Death threats equals no donations.
Yep, and more importantly, no votes.
Mm-hmm. And attempts at your life, which probably mentally harms your psyche.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I get it. Mitch McConnell doesn't want to be murdered, which is a very reasonable opinion to have. It's a very reasonable thing to feel.
My big question is how many people that have made the death threats have actually made attempts on those threats?
Well,
because I'm starting to think it's not zero.
I was going to say a whole bunch of them tried to kill these senators on January 6th. So
that makes me start to wonder if we need to start investigating the seriousness of even death threats that on the surface feel like they have no validity.
Well, the FBI takes every death threat very seriously, especially against elected officials.
Where are we failing when it comes to that?
There's a variety of. It's not so much that we're failing per se. It's just that there's only so much you can do in terms of resources that you spend. There is no way that the FBI would even have the resources to begin to investigate every single shit post on 4chan or whatever. But generally speaking,
essentially the thing that essentially overrides it is the sheer quantity of people giving threats.
Yes, that's a big part of it. But the FBI, they do take them very seriously. And if you make a death threat online and the FBI can pin you down, they absolutely will come after you. Like, I'm not even joking about that. They will come after you.
Yeah.
And like I said, you could be like the people who are right now, the people who...
Of course, that's only if they can identify your name out of a sea of other names. So most of the time, you're making a gamble when you make a death threat.
Yeah, well, they're doing a pretty good job of bagging all the people that were at the Capitol. So I would not bet against the FBI.
Tells me when it's something like an insurrection, they're willing to use all of their resources to get every single one. When it's a thing,
and
like,
it helps.
When it's
it
a
helps.
thing like phone death threats, sometimes blocking the number is the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, and it helps, by the way, that there are many, and we can call them patriots, who are willing to help them out like this. Like, for example, the before Parler was initially shut down, its entire metadata got leaked. And so someone actually used that metadata to corroborate Parler users with the insurrection. And they sent a map, and they sent a map, according to Gonzo, they titled it Y'all Qaeda. And
Y'all Qaeda, I love it.
Al-Qaeda.
Love it.
Which is, yeah, I've heard that term actually used a couple of times to refer to like the Proud Boy types as like Y'all Qaeda.
Y'all Qaeda.
I would call them the American ISIS personally, but I think Y'all Qaeda is also pretty good. But I digress. So,
Okay, so the Proud Boys is American ISIS. The entirety of the insurrection that stormed the Capitol is Y'all Qaeda because they're a bigger organization.
well, all right, we can go with that. I think that can work. But yeah, so they put that little map together and sent it off to the FBI, and now the FBI is going around and rounding these people up. And again, they are in jail. The guy with the Viking helmet and stuff like that, he's in jail. A right-wing live streamer called Baked Alaska, I think, he just got arrested.
Dude, that guy was a big name when it came to remember that study, the Alternative Influencer Network?
Yeah.
Baked Alaska was baked into that study heavily. So like whoever the person who wrote that study was had a fucking hard on when it came to like investigating his indoctrinative material. And honestly, I wonder how people feel now about like the Alternative Influencer Network study, or the intellectual dark web study that people did. It makes me feel like that one aged like a fine wine, because now people are probably willing to look at it more and go, you know what? This person might have had a point about online influence.
I would definitely be interested to see how much overlap comes between the people named in that study and the people who were either at the insurrection or promoted the insurrection. And
the only guy that's probably safe is Ben Shapiro, because he was always a talking suit.
I think Ben Shapiro might be in a bit of hot water now. I heard about him mentioning the other day. I forgot what it was. But anyway,
there's no way he was dumb enough to go, yeah, the insurrection should have happened. Yeah, listen, folks.
Well, so yeah, so there's definitely consequences being faced now for the people there. And it's funny how now the GOP wants to talk about, unity. Like, that's their argument this time against impeachment. Like last time, when it was impeachment, they could at least say, well, it's a big hoax and it's just Democrats fail the election, blah, blah, blah. Now it's, well, we can't impeach Trump because that'll just make people angrier. It's like, bitch, please. Okay, first of all, we're at a point now where Jimmy Kimmel could make fun of Trump on his program and these people would be pissed off. All right. I'm not particularly interested in their feelings if they're always going to be mad.
It's not a question of who we piss off. It's a question of what it means for the country as a whole. Pissing more people off does not necessarily mean we don't save the country.
Because honestly, these aren't
have people bothered to grasp the fact that if we do nothing now, we're essentially saying we don't care what happens to America?
Exactly. Like,
pretty much.
As I've explained this to some friends of mine the other day, it's like the whole point of it now is to make it clear that if you try this, there's going to be consequences. Like,
essentially, if I want to put it like fucking redneck style, if you fuck with America, we'll put a cap in your ass.
Yes, or to, again, use the motto that our friends at the Lincoln Project do: fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
These people fucked around, now they're finding out.
Fuck around and find out was the best damn rhetoric that was created. That was good shit.
But okay, let's say that you don't want to impeach. Okay, fine. Here's an alternative. expel every single member of Congress who expressed support for the insurrection, okay? Because this is actually in the Constitution. You know, we've all talked about Article 20, the 25th Amendment, Article, Article 3, Article 4.
Originally, I would say half of the demands being made here just aren't going to happen because that's just how blindly loyalist a lot of this shit was. But things have tipped in such a direction. If you don't make the hard decisions here, you're essentially saying you wanted the insurrectionists to kill you.
Yeah. It's like these people tried to
that's going to be a hard one to fucking mentally jackass yourself around.
Yep. And again, this is actually laid out in the Constitution. The 14th Amendment, which was drafted as the Equal Rights Amendment. The 14th Amendment, Section 3 says this. I'm gonna pull it up here. 14th Amendment, Section 3. Here's what it says. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as any member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid and comfort to the enemies thereof. So, but Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such ability. So, basically it says, if you took an oath to defend the Constitution and you then support an insurrection against that same Constitution, you're out of here. 2/3 vote, you're gone.
I want to point out one defense people were using is like, doesn't the Constitution defend people's right to storm the Capitol? Is like, apparently in that very same doctrine, they're saying members of Congress that would defend that shit aren't fit to lead, so I wouldn't think so.
No.
So
no.
what does that put Josh Haley and Ted Cruz and all those?
It says Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz should be thrown out of the Senate now, today. Like, get out of here. And I can tell you this, by the way. The GOP, the Republican caucus, would absolutely vote to get rid of Ted Cruz because it's Ted Cruz. Nobody likes Ted Cruz.
Oh, fucking hate Ted Cruz. One thing we can agree on is that we fucking hate Ted.
Let me tell you what Rick Wilson said on the New Abnormal podcast last week. He said that if it came down to a vote between expelling Ted Cruz and feeding him to a pack of wolves, they'd vote to feed him to the wolves. So
expelling is too good for him, basically.
Yeah, basically. Nobody likes Ted Cruz. And I think nobody...
Ted is a sniveling little coward that never stood on any kind of fucking laurels and always flip-flopped on his positions based on what was advantageous for him. But at the same time, he was just a fucking raging coward that stood for nothingness and mediocrity.
Uh-huh. And
fucking wimp.
In a related story, Lindsey Graham, or we know him around these parts, Lady G, just sent a letter to Chuck Schumer, who is about to be the majority leader in the Senate, urging him to dismiss the article of impeachment against Joe Biden. Oh, very nice. This is what he said on, first of all, he went on Fox News this morning and he said this of Biden. First of all, if you don't stand up against the impeachment of Donald Trump after he leaves office, you're an incredibly weak figure in American history. President Trump is trying to heal the nation. And then he follows it up. Then he follows it up with when he talks about whether or not the Republican majority would convict Trump, because there is a real possibility that they could vote to do that this time. Graham says, if you convict Trump, it would destroy our party. Impeaching him after he leaves office would be disastrous for our country and our party. I'm still thinking, wait, Lindsey, weren't you the guy who said back in 2016 that if you nominated Trump, you would get destroyed and the GOP would deserve it? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm looking at the tweet right here. I'm pretty sure I remember the tweet.
For the Republican Party.
I'm posting a tweet here in the Discord chat. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's you there, Lindsay. I'm pretty sure you said you would destroy yourself.
I know you're the editor, but would you be against slapping that motherfucker just right on the screen?
Yeah.
At this portion? Like, Like, just this. People need to read that and weep, please.
Yeah, I'll make sure that the tweet is in there.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. Also, by the way, we do have some. Speaking of the Biden administration, got some interesting news about that. Scarlett just posted in our chat. Gonzo, you're our news guy. You want to go ahead and read that out for us?
All right, let me bring that back up real quick. Yeah, he's planning to cancel the Keystone XL pipeline permit with an executive action when he deals with his first day in office.
That's pretty significant right there. And the Keystone XL, for those of you that forgot, because it was like 1 billion years ago, that's the pipeline that's being built through Standing Rock. That's the Indian reservation. I think I want to say it's a CU reservation, but there was a lot of protests over this pipeline. It was being built through an Indian reservation. I was never a big supporter of this pipeline for 2 reasons. One is eminent domain. I strongly disagree with the idea of eminent domain, which is the idea that the government can just come in and take your land for whatever purpose that it needs. I strongly disagree with that. And number 2, more importantly, if you looked at the proposed route of the pipeline, it ran close to like 1 or 2 major water reservoirs for the nearby cities. It was essentially an environmental disaster waiting to happen. So
Yeah, and big thing that I'm sure many progressives would agree with me with. Why are you specifically hell-bent on doing this to the Native Americans?
Because it wasn't enough just putting them in like little reservations. No, we got to make sure they're all dead.
Do I have to start making the petty rhetoric points that there's some people up there that are just really, really fucking racist? Because I will.
Mm-hmm.
If it means not getting that fucking pipeline that would fuck way more people than just the Native Americans over, I will use the racist card. Don't think I won't.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think I won't. Like, yeah. Be afraid. Be very afraid. I'm a white man with a racist card, and I'm not afraid to use it.
You have a very weak racist card in that situation, considering that you are white.
See, you would think that, but then you got to look at like the hypocrisy of leftist movements that claim to speak for minorities when white people have the biggest voice on the stage.
Yup. Yeah, you could. Yeah, you know how to level up your racism card.
Yeah, I just go into like the fucking SCP Foundation and upgrade that shit by cranking it through a machine.
Upgrading racist card.
It's now level 2, and then I'll put level 2 into the circuit to get level 3.
Oh Lord!
I'm here with my level 500 racist card.
Oh shit!
I will attack your life points directly.
I love that just because I'm a weeb.
I will attack your life points directly. Send you right to the bigot realm.
Just show a guy with a clan hood getting banished to the Shadow Realm.
If only those Asians open their eyes!
Anyways, before we go further and further and getting ourselves in fucking trouble, let's get back to the matter at hand.
Don't worry, we're already in trouble just because we
I'm about to
disagree.
say we're already in trouble. As enough as it
I'm
is.
always just trying to keep our level of trouble at a constant level now. Then
I'm praying to God we're not in the doghouse with Scarlet. Like, fuck.
Yeah, we're pretty much already digging ourselves a hole. Let's not make it any deeper.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was gonna say, Scarlet. Did she get shadow banned for it?
I have no idea.
I'd like to think she didn't, because honestly, it was an all-time great tweet from Scarlet. For those who don't know what we mean, so she made a comment about Dan Crenshaw, who you may recall we mentioned last time as trying to paint himself as like this uber super spy out to beat up Antifa in his quest to deliver Georgia for the Senate. didn't quite work out. So the account Conservative Self owns posted a couple screenshots. One of them came from Dan Crenshaw. This tweet from Dan Crenshaw came on May 29th, and he was there to vote on the economic aid package for the pandemic. Crenshaw tweeted out, proxy voting is cowardly, period. It was then followed up by another screen cap saying on January 13th that Dan Crenshaw voted no on impeachment by proxy. You may recall that Dan Crenshaw lost his right eye in his service for our country in the Middle East. And so, with that in mind, Scarlett replied to this tweet that Crenshaw lacks the vision to see his own faults and failures.
Oh my God.
I mean, look,
Well,
I don't.
I mean, on
Scarlett,
one hand,
you got onto me for being edgy. Holy hell, that's spicy.
on
I
one
love it.
hand, I mean, yeah, he has to vote via proxy because there's still a clear and present danger in D.C. with the Proud Boys and the Boogaloos and all those crazies still wanting to try to break through all those barriers to kill their fucking senators for not doing enough to keep Trump in office.
I've actually got to make a compromise with Scarlett here, right? We're not going to judge you for that tweet if you're not mad at us for this. How about that? Like,
But here's the thing. On the other hand, yeah, he's only got one eye, and it's easy to blind him with the light from Trump's ass. So,
Yeah.
oh my God, I remember seeing that. Oh my God.
I mean, okay, look. So, okay, let's get this out of the way. Dan Crenshaw literally gave part of himself in service for our country during his time in the military. We appreciate him for that. Next sentence. This guy is a pompous jackass. I mean, we all talked about his little commercial where he jumps out of a freaking airplane to get support for Kelly Loeffler and Dave Perdue.
Which, to some degree, directly betrays his oath.
Yeah, like we talked about how his own commander was like, "The fuck is this shit?"
What do you do with a proud military service member that, yes, lost a body part for your country, but then betrays his fucking oath to the country? What do you do with that? We've never had that before, I don't think.
There was only one other politician who did some service, lost a part of their body, but wasn't this fucking pompous. I forgot who, but it was a woman who I believe had her legs mangled doing her duty.
No, that's Tammy Duckworth, right? No,
I believe so. Yeah, she basically did service, and she's now a DC politician, but she wasn't this fucking pompous, I believe.
No, she's not. Yeah, it's Tammy Duckworth. Yeah, we talked about her during the primaries.
Yeah.
It's like she's not jumping out of a fucking airplane in a bit of gratuitous self-indulgence for that.
And
she's just
trying to promote two unlikable dickheads who pretty much just are wealthy enough to. They're pretty much wealthy enough as is. They're fine. No matter what fucking happens with the pandemic, nothing would affect them. They're just they're better off than the majority of Georgians that they're supposed to represent.
I think
who have trouble trying to find jobs because of COVID, who have trouble trying to keep money afloat because of their employers not trying to keep them for COVID or whatever.
I will say this about Crenshaw. He's expressed his willingness to fight Antifa. I hope he has that same enthusiasm to fight the people that try to overthrow the government.
Crenshaw, I don't think, even gave an opinion on the insurrection yet, did he?
I believe he actually did. Like the day it happened, he actually tweeted out like he basically tweeted out like, "Stop this bullshit right now," which is like, yeah, okay, Dan, that's great. Think about why are they there to begin with. But yeah, he also voted no on impeachment, which just again it shows you.
Fuck, damn.
Hey, can you stop this bullshit? I'm trying to do my job for you.
I'm trying to respect the troops here, and you just suck, Dan. Why? Why
Yeah.
do you suck so hard? You try my patience to respect the troops. God damn it.
hmm Also, by the way, he just says he actually just made a comment about the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline, where he just tweeted out, Biden plans to kill jobs and raise your energy prices, and for what? Not the environment. Canceling this pipeline does nothing for the environment. It's for his radical base. He's appeasing them on day one.
You know,
Oh,
except-
so
except for
so
the
we
fact
should
that
install
all
the Keystone
major-
Pipeline and fucking poison the water of every living, poison the water supply for every
Well-
living creature within what, South Dakota, North Dakota? Where the hell is that?
He's being a typical politician in this situation for the fact that he outright lies and shifts the rhetoric to the idea that the shit won't contaminate the water sources it goes through.
Oh, trust me, you're gonna love fucking the kind
Like
of
he
stuff.
says that shit with a straight face.
It'll make those people who end up getting flammable fucking water from nearby fracking look like a joke.
Okay, all right. He did actually give an opinion on impeachment. He wrote on the 13th, he tweeted out, we should not ignore the president's behavior leading up to the violence in the Capitol on January 6th. He bears enormous responsibility for it. But impeachment's not the answer. We all need to de-escalate, lower the temperature, and move forward together as a country.
No, you know what? If you're gonna say that, tell us what the goddamn answer is. Because
Yeah, first of
de-escalation,
all,
how are you gonna fucking de-escalate when there's a guy who instigated a fucking coup on the White House, and you're not gonna punish him worth a shit?
Yeah, he learned his lesson. We're not gonna punish him. We're not gonna
Dan,
teach
I
him
don't
that.
care if you fucking serve. You say that shit, you're going in the back of a trunk.
Okay. I was gonna say, first of all, he uses the condescending but, or that one condescending but. Like, you know,
But
It's
the
like
fact
whenever
that this
someone
country
says,
almost
like, you
burned
know-
to the ground doesn't matter.
it's like if somebody says, you know, I don't have a problem with gay people, but, and everything they say after that is their problems with gay people. I think that, you know, the president deserves to be held accountable for his actions, but we shouldn't hold him accountable for his actions at all.
I will admit those butts have come into a conversation more because of the same damn things Jonathan Pye criticized, though, right? They're calling you racist, or they're calling you homophobic, or they're calling you hateful for things that aren't actually those things.
Yeah.
I feel like culturally, sometimes people are literally just being assholes.
Mhm.
Other times, however, they are trying to prepare or preface for the fact that they're going to be called racist no matter what they say.
Trying
Yeah.
to soften the blow of you being a blatantly horrible person to
Because-
deal with.
Right at the end of no, like, and I think the thing we need to start doing is eradicate that whole idea of I'm not racist, but I mean, I've said it, right? I'm not homophobic, but I think a lot of LGBT organizations fucking suck at representing gay people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there are people that have actually called me homophobic for saying those organizations suck.
Well, the way I do it is I just come out and say it. Like, I say, like, I don't say I got nothing against, you know, entitlement programs, but they're wasteful. Instead, I just say, look, there are entitlement programs that work fine, and there are others that cost way too much and don't work.
Yeah, so one of the other key notions is probably going to be teaching people the proper way to make an argument, because I think things have gotten so hysterical, people have forgotten how to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it you see, you know, people, again, I understand where that comes from. I honestly understand where that comes from, because I had to like look into the bigotry that I ended up expressing, both before and after a sort of big red pill experience, and I still end up falling in that trap, because I know that, you know, no matter what I say,
I think
I know that no matter what I say,
yeah.
I'm gonna get that shit thrown at me.
I do think that at some point or another, we have coarsened discourse, and to sit here and pretend like it's all the fault of the right. The reason the right even has this rhetoric at all is because of the people we've allowed to run rampant that Jonathan Pye is constantly having to criticize. We've taken no accountability for our side. So
No accountability.
the problem here is, unless you can get people to understand that when they're preaching about accountability, they're going to look like huge hypocrites. And this is one thing that Trump supporters are constantly using. Who did you hold accountable recently? Who did you fucking shame for their actions? Who did you say did wrong? And the truth is, no one. We've fucking sucked at it. Period.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to holding our own accountable, we haven't been setting the example at all. We've been shaming people trying to call out fucking pedophiles, for Christ's sake. We've been doing the precise opposite. We've been setting all the bad examples. The first fucking step of doing better, of doing right, is admitting to the fact you've done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And while I personally wasn't doing these things, I didn't do a whole lot to stop it. Mainly because I was like a lot of those people, afraid to speak up. What's it going to do for me? What are these people going to do to me? At this point though, things have gotten so bad. I've started to mature and realize it doesn't matter. If people on the left are fucking it up for other people on the left, they need to be told to take a hike. If you care about these causes, if you care about these people, if you care about getting the change that matters, tell that person to take a hike. If
Absolutely.
not, I'm going to say the same thing we said to the insurrectionists. Fuck you.
And because ultimately, at the end of the day, if your house is dirty, then who are you to tell someone else to clean their house up, right?
And I get it. And it doesn't help that a lot of this rhetoric has come from right wingers because it's deaf on the ears, but a stop clock has been right twice a day. And the fact is, when even fucking Jordan B. Peterson said, when your house is a fucking mess, you don't have a right to judge everyone else, he had a point. In what moral position does the lowly wretch of society have to come to another lowly wretch and preach a position of superiority when you're both in the same hole? It just looks asinine.
Yeah, it's like you have two big sludge monsters walking up to each other. They're made of different sludge, and it's just like, your sludge is horrible. No, your sludge is horrible.
Do you know what?
Fuck you.
Do you know what pisses me off though? Pisses me off more about the left than the right. We don't deny science. We don't deny the social sciences. We don't deny sociology. We don't deny geopolitics. We don't deny racial issues. We don't deny issues with gay culture. We don't deny issues with shaming. Deny issues with bureaucracy. And we especially don't deny issues with money. We are in a position where we can constantly be better, and we don't fucking do it. That's privilege.
Yeah. Right now, you could say the same thing about the Republican Party, is that you're in a position right now.
Oh yeah, right now, yeah, they've got a chance right now.
Yeah,
Right
right
here
now,
and
you're
now.
in a position to you're in a position to once and for all look at Donald Trump and say, this guy isn't us. This is not who we are. This is not what we stand for.
And
And
I'm about to say, I'm not going to hold my breath, fellow leftists, fellow Democrats, fellow moderates. I'm not going to hold my breath on these people doing right. My question to you is, you want to be that asshole over there? Like, because you're coursing towards it, whether you want to believe it or not. Or do you want to be different?
Mhm.
because at some point or a fucking another, right? When it comes to our political positions, we're 100% different. When it comes to how we treat people and act, we are fucking up tremendously.
Mhm.
Like, we just are. And like,
And
when
again, I want to emphasize, like, you know, just how low the bar has been set now by Trump is that this is the first time in the 240 plus year history of the Republic that we're not having a peaceful transfer of power. Because for every single president up until Trump, the reaction to the election was always the same. If you won, great. You get to run the country for 4 years, but you have to do so with the acknowledgement that about half the country didn't vote for you. So you're going to have to keep them in mind. You don't want to piss them off because you want enough of them to like you, so they'll give you another chance. And if you lost, you shake their hands, good game, well played, and you come back in 4 years, try again. There was never, ever a sense of, well, we lost, so we have to either, A, keep them from gaining power, or if we can, we got to burn everything down. Okay, this has not happened. This is completely unheard of and really so far out of the fucking norm for this. And so we're facing a crisis like one that has never, that our country has never really experienced since arguably the Civil War. And Dan, you want to sit here and talk about unity? You want to bring about unity, Dan? Here's what you do. Get Marjorie Taylor Greene out of Congress now, today. And by the way, while you're at it, why don't you throw out people like Gomer, Devin Nunes, or Jim Jordan, or whoever the representative was that was live tweeting Nancy Pelosi's location during the insurrection.
I've come to
Get those fuckers out of here now. Then we can start talking about healing.
Yeah, I've come to fundamentally learn. When it comes to creating a non-hostile environment that serves the purpose you want it to serve, even when it comes to being like an online influencer, right? Or when it comes to being an online content creator, if you have a community, there is no zero-sum responsibility for what those people do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything you say, every word they will hold on to, there is an equal and opposite reaction to the things you say. For just as many supporters as you have, you'll have plenty of haters, but the truth here is the haters don't matter. What matters is that you're setting the best example for your audience.
Yes.
And that starts by looking at people that are looking to instigate something you don't agree with and going, no, you're going to cut that out right now or you're out of here.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the balls to do that, you shouldn't own a community, because that thing is going to wind up being a fucking menace, a detriment to everybody.
Yeah.
And it'll be your fault because you refuse to take responsibility. Not because you actually directly did anything. It's because of what you didn't do, which was anything at all.
Mm-hmm. And again, to kind of go back to show you like what the GOP used to be. In the 1990s, David Duke, as in that David Duke, he wanted to run for governor. What did Bush 41 do? He didn't just kind of pretend never heard of David Duke. He didn't sit idly by and just hope for the best. No, he deployed the collective GOP apparatus to the South for one purpose and one purpose only. That was to utterly destroy this man in a political sense. The GOP, whenever the GOP had to deal with racism, and look, we've always had racists have always existed in the Republican Party. Okay, I'm not going to pretend that they haven't, but we've always kept them in the back of the bus. Well, now those idiots in the back of the bus have taken over the whole fucking bus, and they're about to drive us off a fucking cliff. So maybe we should have gotten rid of them. I don't know, but we didn't let them. The only reason they're up there now is because Trump let them go up there. In the past, whenever they tried to get up to the front of the bus, we said, no, you're not doing it. Get to the back where you fucking belong, you lunatics.
You see, the problem is Trump is the bus driver right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thankfully not for much longer.
It's like that fucking opening scene from Nightmare on Elm Street 2 when Freddy Krueger's driving the bus. Like, And he's just like fucking taking them off road, and you can see like this fucking hand with knives just shifting the gear, and it's like really violent
Yeah.
until the bus comes to like a stop, and then they're just in the middle of a desert. Like, yeah, like
Replace Kruger with Trump, and the fact
Yeah,
that
it's
you're
just-
not in a dream, you're in reality.
yeah, it's just Trump like, bitch.
I'm gonna make America great again, bitch.
I want that to be a meme.
Oh god. Yeah, I'm good with all the Trump memes there. Well,
God.
yeah. Thank God we only have to deal with them for like a couple more days. I'm sure they'll be around for a while. But
He'll
I don't know
still be
how-
around. He just won't be president.
That's the worst thing, though. He'll still be around, meaning because of all that we didn't do, because of all of the consequences we have to bear with, as long as that man's alive, and even after his death, there will be a looming shadow of what that left behind.
Yes, and that's why if you're the Republican Party, if you want to have any hope whatsoever of becoming a national party again, you need to spend your next 4 years completely destroying this man politically, financially, and and I don't know what the proper anim here. In terms of reputation, just utterly destroy this man. Do what you didn't do in 2016, and which I told you guys they could have stopped Trump back in 2015, 2016. The Republican donor class could have easily blotted out the sun with the amount of attack ads against Trump, and he never would have even had gotten close to the White House. Now, granted, we probably would have ended up with President Ted Cruz instead, and you can debate amongst yourselves whether that would have necessarily been better, but we wouldn't have ended up with Trump. Well, we didn't do that, and now we end up here. So now you have a chance to rectify this mistake. You have a chance to, when Ivanka Trump tries to primary Marco Rubio in 2022, and we know that she will, send your guys down there and run every fucking attack ad under the sun against Ivanka Trump. I don't care if we got to get stuck with Marco for a bit more. Marco's fucking dead to me, honestly, after he sold himself out for Trumpism.
I will say this, though. I will say this, though, because people like me aren't going to take this setting down. If you're not going to, get the hell out of the fucking way. Because I doubt, after all of this, the Democratic caucus is going to have zilch to say about it.
Oh, yeah. They'll have things to say. I mean, the Democrats,
if you won't step up to the plate, we're going to find a way to fill that void. I hope you know that.
Yeah, I think they do know that, and I said the opportunity may present itself for the progressives to kind of break off if the coming Republican Civil War does result in the party ceasing to exist as a national party. And what I mean is that, look, the Republicans going forward, they'll still have enough seats in the House and seats in the Senate to make it appear like they're a national party, but the brand itself could become so toxic that outside of the reddest of the red states, you won't be able to field the candidates. So that means like a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Jim Jordan or a Lee Stepniak. Yeah, you'll probably be able to win in like Missouri or Oklahoma. You're not winning in Michigan, though. You're not going to win in Indiana, maybe not even Ohio or Pennsylvania when all's said and done. I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see about Ohio. But my point is that the GOP brand is just in the garbage right now. And it's getting to a point where if you don't repudiate Trump, then you own him. Then you are no longer the party of Lincoln and Reagan and Buckley. You're the party that put kids in cages and laughed about it. You're the party that sat idly by while their president tried to extort the president of another country to dig up dirt on his political rival. You're the party that allowed 400,000 Americans to die. You're the party that supported an attempted overthrow of the United States government. That's you now.
Yeah, you're also the party whose primary, most thought-provoking line of rhetoric was womp womp.
Yep, you're no longer about we got to balance the budget or we got to be about rule of law and adherence to the Constitution. You're about owning the libs. And if
Womp
that's
womp.
all you're about, if all you're about is owning the libs, great. Go get a show on YouTube. Go get a blog on, whatever the right-wing equivalent of Tumblr is these days. Stay the fuck out of Washington, D.C. That's all I ask, okay?
Yeah, you're also going to have to watch out for that Destiny guy, because if he sees an opportunity, he's probably going to strike. He's probably going to like fucking canvass in areas we didn't even think were possible to democratically canvass in.
I hope Destiny if Destiny shows up in Texas in 2024,
he's proving a fucking Twitch streamer can get involved in politics and actually have an impact. Like, that's what he's proven here. A fucking Twitch streamer can make a huge geopolitical difference.
Yeah, and for all the guys on the right that are like freaking out about their followers count now, like I said, our guy Mike Blaze Maga, he seems to be mostly concerned with the fact that TikTok isn't uploading his videos or that he's losing followers rather than, potentially the end of the United States as we know it.
We could hypothetically see like a fucking really stupid ass period of time where we have a geopolitical conflict between the intellectual dark web and the bread tubers.
Oh God, I think we might be fast-tracking. We might be fast-tracking toward that as we speak, actually.
Because Destiny just inspired, right? Influencers could actually canvas if they decided to use their own money to do it.
Absolutely.
Which means, right, if Destiny can canvas, anyone can canvas. That doesn't leave out the always Trumpers. In fact, no matter what, they'll have their blind supporter base, and it could be fundamentally argued that alt tech platforms will help fund those ventures. So,
in fact,
like I would argue, right, worst possible future, the darkest timeline. You've got Sargon of Akkad, who's not even a fucking American, over here canvassing for Devin Nunes or some shit.
Actually, I just saw that Katie Hopkins is actually going to be in D.C. for the Biden inauguration. So I just put out a tweet saying, "Okay, we got to get Jonathan Pye over here now. We gotta counterbalance Katie Hopkins somehow."
Yeah.
But I mean,
Hexenhammer in fucking Vermont trying to get a Republican to win.
now it's interesting you bring that up because something that the Daily Beast's Molly Jong Fast has repeatedly brought up is the idea of the quote unquote celebrity candidates and how maybe we should be doing more. The Democrats should be looking at doing more of them. Now, I've always been wary of the celebrity candidates because I feel that that's an instance where you're voting for someone based on their personality rather than their actual policy. Donald Trump, about 70 to 80% of his votes came from the fact that this guy was a celebrity. Okay.
I would argue, right, the place celebrities have in political discourse is endorsement, not running for office. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the exception. He wasn't the rule.
Yeah. And same thing with The Rock. Like, The Rock was supposed to be running in 2024, and people look, and I want to hear what The Rock his positions are. Like, if The Rock has pretty reasonable positions, I might vote for him. I'm not just going to vote for him just because I want The Rock to be...
The Rock's a pretty smart guy, right? And so is Vin Diesel. Like, if Vin Diesel ran for office, he's a born American, right? Vin Diesel, in theory, could run for office. Vin Diesel would probably actually be a good politician just because he's smart. Because one thing, right, that would be the sole determining factor of whether a celebrity should be a politician is whether they have the brain or the mindset to play the political game in the first place, which Arnold Schwarzenegger did. And The Rock might. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is no fool. The man has quite a career and a line of work behind him. So to say he'd be a bad politician, no, I think The Rock might actually be a good politician, but he's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah. But I do agree with you, Sharp, that there is, even if you don't want to run celebrity candidates, you can use them for endorsements. I know we always say the political acumen of Beyonce and Jay-Z means something. Well, maybe not. But what they can do is they can get people out to vote. Like Destiny got people out to vote in Georgia. I mean, imagine if you will.
And and here's the thing, right? and this is a thing that's truthful about Destiny's canvassing event. Not only did he get people out to vote in Georgia, he dwarfed the other canvassing groups.
Mm-hmm.
His endorsement was so incredibly powerful. He was getting people from across the country just to join this thing as a social outing and then actually get involved when they learned what it was about.
Yeah, so you take your top Instagram models like Emily Baldwin, Bella Hadid. Can you imagine them canvassing for presidential candidate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? She might actually win if you're able to get
And-
that kind of...
In doing that, because of this climate shift, because of what determined the primary to some degree, like, we can't sit here and act like Stephen Bunnell's work did not have an impact in Georgia, because even the canvassers are giving him the credit he's owed. Other Democratic canvassing groups had him on, talked to him, said, no, the work you did was phenomenal. Like, so we can't sit here and ignore that guy. A Twitch streamer is getting there, where they have just about as much importance, if not more importance, than a Hollywood endorsement.
Absolutely.
And with that in mind, going forward, what this tells us, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was taking a shot in the dark when she decided to play Among Us on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
But she might have sparked something neither of us could predict. That attempting to relate to the youth through video games might actually work.
Yeah, when I first heard she was playing Among Us, I was just like, oh, dear God, no, this can't possibly end well. But you know what? She may be onto something, because she is pretty like Trump, she seems pretty savvy with social media. The difference is that Trump just used it to really spread baseless conspiracy theories and never really used it to expand his base. That was one of the reasons why I've been saying for going all the way back to like 2019, that there should have been alarm bells going off in the Republican base regarding Trump's reelection prospects. Because even with all the advantages that an incumbent president has when it comes to reelection, if you want a chance to actually win the White House back, you need to expand your base. Trump never did, and there was no indication he was ever interested in doing that, which is which ultimately made the Lincoln Project's job of peeling off his voters that much easier.
I want to make a point, right? Ocasio-Cortez playing Among Us seems like on the surface, oh, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything, right? If you've ever seen the movie Ratatouille, the antagonist Anton Ego gives one very important speech. The average piece of junk is probably more meaningful than our criticism designating it so. What that means is the individual significance is not determined by the critic. It's determined by the people who consume it. And the deeper meaning, right? Chef Gusteau's great saying, anyone can cook. It doesn't mean anyone can be a great artist. It means a great artist can come from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why does that matter? When I saw Ocasio-Cortez, right, to some degree a mainstream politician, doing something so obscure, so niche, that would be so rejected by her political party as just playing a video game with some kids, basically. That's essentially what other politicians would view this as, right?
Yes.
That was a fuck you to old people that said, I don't matter. That was a fuck you to old people that said, my hobby was the cause of most school shootings and political violence in this country. You need to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
That was my hobby becoming more mainstream and me becoming more accepted as a person through that one action. If you think that won't expand a political base to some degree, you would be wrong.
Yep. And the ironic thing is that Donald Trump actually did something similar. Whereas with AOC did it with, gamers and video games, Donald Trump did it with shit posters on 4chan by giving credence to the QAnon theory and making it seem like these guys who are posting. And by the way, for those who didn't see last time, it's generally accepted that the guy who runs 8chan is actually Q. Like, that's the leading theory.
Yeah.
So Trump gives credence to that stuff. The difference is that AOC is doing it to generate something positive for the country and trying to get more people involved.
What she did what she did was she gave credence to people who haven't done anything wrong, who have been disenfranchised just because of societal prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, could be the truth as to why the youth doesn't think their vote matters. Because when you really look at the way the world is and how we treat the youth in politics, oh, they're just not seasoned enough. Oh, they just don't have enough experience. All this negativity and doubt, nobody thinks that that might be what discourages them from voting? That to the broader discourse, to society, to even the politicians who might represent them, will eventually turn around, denounce them, and cut them down.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you get a teen who's pretty much active in the political spectrum and knows what they're talking about, they should just be shot down like, what do they know? They're too young.
Yeah, but here's something I think a lot of people found to respect about Bernie Sanders and why he still has a base. And it's not the naivete of socialism. I think people haven't looked far enough beneath the surface to ask why Bernie Sanders matters to these people. Oh, he'll give them free shit. No. Bernie Sanders was the first guy who looked to these kids and said, hey, let's hear them out.
Yep.
That one old person we needed to believe in us.
The guy who, well, he won't give us the entire world, but he'll help us reach it.
No, but when it comes to a hand to reach out to... All right. When it comes to a hand to reach out, to lift people up, Bernie Sanders has done more of that than any other Democratic politician that claims to be for the people. It's not about his policy or the bad rhetoric for the youth. It's about, does this person represent me?
Yes.
And I actually think the only reason the youth didn't vote was because they didn't think he had a chance in hell of winning. And why would you fight so hard and so tirelessly for such a great letdown? To be told that at the end of all that, hey, your vote still doesn't matter.
Well,
Doesn't-
that's ultimately what happened in Georgia with the Trump voters, and because like I said, I mean, you can draw parallels between what people like Bernie and AOC did and what Trump did. The difference is that Bernie and AOC are doing it in a genuine attempt to actually expand their base, or at the very least, encourage more civic engagement in politics. Whereas Trump just made a cult. I mean, that's really what QAnon is at this point. So the True Believers are at this point. They're a cult. And in fact, as I was saying this, our guy Tom Nichols just tweeted out another thread about how there's a correlation, a parallel between QAnon's hypothetical climatic battle, the storm as they call it, and all the various Cold War cults that sprang up in the 70s and 80s. So here's what Nichols wrote. The storm is a moment, like nuclear war, after which everything is different, even if there's bloodshed. It's purgative, restorative, resets all the social relationships, ends all traditional and normal social structure. It's shaking society like a huge Etch-a-Sketch. Why is it so attractive to so many broken people? Precisely because it is a reset. It's awful, but it's an awfulness that sets everything, including all social differences, back to zero. The high and mighty are smited, and the common folk live by their superior wits. The Cold War pulp literature is what one scholar calls radioactive Rambos, men free to be warrior kings of the wasteland, with all rules about sex and society out the window in the name of a greater good. America, civilization, killing commies. The sexual element of Cold War survival cultism was omnipresent. Dr. Strangelove and breeding prodigiously in the mines and so on. But the other undertone is status and how the low rise up and rule after the pinheads blow all that shit up. Think of The Postman, a post-apocalyptic fantasy in which General Bethlehem admits who he was in another life. He sold fax machines. You're supposed to side with the actor, but Bethlehem is the guy who gets it. That Armageddon means his own army and a lot of glory. Anyway, the similarity with QAnon is the idea that this thing, if true, would be awful. Whether a pedophile ring or nuclear war, it would be better not to be true. But if it were, well, wouldn't it be awesome if we ordinary folk ended up being the generals of our own army? Nuclear survival cultishness was eroded each day that there was no nuclear war. QAnon, by contrast, has a lot more resilience because it is unfalsifiable. That's going to make it harder to unwind, and the people that are in it will always wonder if they were onto something. And each day that goes by where there isn't some big pedophile reveal is going to make them a little nuttier. The people I knew who stockpiled water had to give it up eventually. This is easier. You just have to believe it. No effort needed. But anyway, the point is that people sometimes need to believe in some huge, terrifying thing so that they could create a heroic narrative in their minds. Nuclear war was and is a real threat. But these Q nuts, that makes nuclear war survivalism look like rational by comparison. So what Tom is trying to say here is that whether it comes to believing that you have to overthrow the government or that there's going to be a huge World War III, it comes down from the same thing. It's people, and I said before, that the key to understanding a lot of people to support Trump is that these people feel they've gotten a raw deal. So they want that big reset button. They want to wipe the slate clean and start over. This is why I actually compared them to ISIS, because ISIS's goal is literally the destruction of the entire planet. ISIS isn't out for some Islamic caliphate or whatever like Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah is. ISIS wants the end of the world. They're a literal apocalyptic cult. So that's also where you go back to believing the big lie, because the big lie tells you that, hey, if you do this, you will bring about the end of America. It'll be terrible, sure, but you might get to carve out your own free state of Dave or whatever in your subdivision. Wouldn't that be cool? You might get to be Mad Max or the Vault Dweller from Fallout. Wouldn't that be cool? And that's kind of where you get these people that are so... It also is where the Boogaloo Boys come from, why they're so eager to start a race war or a civil war.
And you bring that up, it actually starts making more sense as to like what Destiny and Ocasio might have been intentionally or unintentionally doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving people a different evil to fight against.
Yes.
Which is this whole idea of, well, you're not looking for a reset button. What you're looking for is the next chapter.
Yes.
And the next chapter starts with you. That's essentially what the counter rhetoric is this is your time. This isn't their time. This is your time. This is your chance to make a difference. This is your chance to prove that you've got something to say, that what you're trying to do matters.
It's like Joe Friday said in Dragnet, don't try to build a new country. Make this one work. It has for over 240 years, and in the eyes of the world, that's a little more than yesterday.
Yeah, and it's like, here's my thing, right? I don't question Destiny's goodwill, because the man's rich. Like, when it comes to everything he's doing, the only motive he could really have is to further political policy he actually believes in, which when you're canvassing for a Democrat, I could only argue that you want Democrat policy.
Yeah.
So like, and then here's the primary thing that tells me that it's not money someone like Destiny's looking for, right? Because canvassing events cost shitloads of your own money, and there is no return investment. Like, you're just essentially spending all that money for free. So then you gotta ask what people like Destiny, for example, are doing that for. Maybe it's because they are the few people that actually want to see some positive change instead of watching everything burn down.
Yeah.
What other motive could he have? Like, seriously. Nothing he's doing makes sense to traditional standard. Unless he's that one person that just... And let's be honest here, right? When it comes to genuine care, that's in the minority. But what Steven is doing is in the minority. Nobody else is doing what he's doing. Period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, just... That's my reason to believe he doesn't have ill intent. Because if he did, I don't think canvassing for Warnock and Ossoff would be a good way to establish that. If anything, actually, it's sort of weird, right? people who voted Biden, right? In a kind of way, they're also looking for a reset. They're not looking for a reset, say, like you hit the button, the bomb goes off, and everything rises from the ashes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they are looking for a reset, like, we're going to take these kinds of things out of power and forget the hold they had over us, and we're going to keep moving forward regardless of what stands in our way.
That was that's a big thing about this, why this election was so unique. Usually elections are about looking forward. I mean, granted, every election's a referendum on the income, but they're usually phrased as looking forward, as moving past what we have now, or moving toward the shining city on the hill. This time, the message from the Biden camp is, let's take things back a little bit, because if we keep going forward, we're going to go off a fucking cliff. So that's really the rhetoric that we're seeing from the Biden camp right now in regards to...
The Biden camp was kind of like, we're going to go forward by giving ourselves a second chance on what we screwed up the first time.
Yes, we're going to reset the clock back to 2015 or so, and then we're going to try this again. And now, granted, we're about 3 days away from seeing how this all plays out, but that's the rhetoric.
Here's the thing, too. The thing that's so unique about this presidency is there has never been a president, I think since the beginning of time, that has ever had a campaign slogan of, let's try again.
Build back better. It was admittedly not one of the better slogans that I've heard, but it doesn't really matter.
But yeah, like the slogan doesn't matter. What matters is the symbol of the idea that people do want a second chance. In fact, you could argue some people who had voted Trump in 2016 might have voted Biden this year.
Oh, absolutely. That absolutely did happen.
And why?
The same reason. I voted for Biden, and I already told you I voted for Trump last time.
Yeah, and like, I want to bring up, all this is for the same reason I brought up that the left has a responsibility to give more of.
Mm-hmm.
Redemption. That's what they want. They want to redeem themselves.
They want to redeem America.
They want to fix what they broke.
Yeah. And I think Americans as a whole, well, most of us anyway, want to fix what we broke, because, again, I mean, the damage that this presidency has done to us, it's not just being felt on the domestic scale, it's being felt on the international scale. We have all but given up our seat at the geopolitical table of nations like Russia and China. We're no longer viewed as a trustworthy ally by Western Europe or the South Pacific. Alliances and partnerships that have held for years are now on the brink, if not dissolving altogether. And we're going to have a lot of work to do to earn back the trust of the international community.
Essentially, this campaign was an apology for Trump.
Yes.
We're apologizing for everything we let him do. Mm-hmm. Like, it's the first time America has admitted in a long time, we fucked up, and we're not perfect, and we have no idea what we're doing.
By putting a guy like Donald Trump in control, we created a nation that was more or less out of control. But now we've actually gotten the adults, hopefully, back in the room, and we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
I think the two most powerful words in the world that could probably turn the tides of everything is "I'm sorry," and it genuinely seems like the people that are moving in that direction genuinely mean it.
Yeah, and it starts as well with the GOP owning up to the mess that they've created. So the future of the Republican Party depends on whether or not people like Josh Hawley or Ted Cruz or Marjorie Taylor Greene will want to do the right things, and we know that they won't, because who are we kidding?
And with that, it basically has to say, if you're trying to apologize for what happened, these people don't represent you. Period.
Yeah, and basically, and again, Mitch McConnell needs to just send a message saying, if you try to push what happened aside, if you try to apologize for it, if you gave support to these insurrections in any way, shape, or form, you will be removed from the Senate and law enforcement will come after you. So you need to own up to this shit right now, or we're pushing you out. Now, whether Mitch is up to the task, I have no idea. We'll find out soon enough, I suspect.
I feel like we've pretty much said all we need to say.
Yeah, it seems like a nice way to kind of end the show on.
We're almost reaching 3 hours. Jesus.
I know. Yeah. So, before we go off, just a quick recap of what we're going to see in the week to come. By the time you all hear this, some or all of this will have already happened. The Senate will reconvene on the 19th. We'll see whether or not they take up the articles of impeachment right away, at which point either McConnell or Schumer will set the rules for the trial, and we'll just see how that goes. Joe Biden will be sworn in as the 46th president of the United States at the stroke of noon on January 20th. And at some point in time, they're going to have to do the confirmation hearings for the cabinet. As far as the impeachment itself goes, we'll keep tabs on it. We're not going to focus entire shows on it because really, I don't expect it to be as drawn out as the last time around, where you had all these hearings to prove whether or not Trump made the phone call and what he said in the call and whether or not he tried to extort the president of the Ukraine. This time it's pretty open and shut. Did he try to incite a insurrection against the United States? And the answer is yes. I mean, the people that got arrested for it are outright saying that Trump told them to do this. So
and whether it's like a private record, he went on stage and it was broadcasted on many major network television channels.
It'd be awesome if we take some of those people and have them testify at the impeachment where they're just I was following orders.
Oh God, yeah. The fucking Nuremberg defense. Yeah, that worked out so well for the Nazis in Nuremberg. Yeah.
I was following orders.
The Nuremberg defense is indefensible, and if you even get one Trump supporter from the insurrection to say I was following orders or I did what Trump said, there you go.
Yeah,
damning evidence that he did it.
Yeah, and I can also tell you this is that it doesn't sound like they're going to have Rudy be Trump's defense this time. I can also tell you that Trump is ordering his people not to pay Rudy's legal fees for his magical misery tour with the whole Stop the Steal thing. So,
but he appeared around the White House this weekend too.
What's ironic is Rudy can sue him for that, can he?
Maybe. I don't know. That'd be interesting. That would be the most hilariously sad court case I think ever. Is just
Rudy Giuliani didn't.
So
get
wait,
paid
you want Donald Trump to compensate you in your efforts to help overturn a free and fair election? Why shouldn't we just throw you in both you in jail and just call it done? Like, oh my God, that's going to be something. In a related story, if Merrick Garland does decide to hold Truth and Reconciliation hearings, I will get the popcorn out for that because that's going to be fucking fun. But but once again, the impeachment can in fact continue after Trump is out of office. At that point, it's no longer going to be about removing him from office. It's going to be about whether or not he will be allowed to run for office again. And you only need a simple majority to ban him from running for office. It doesn't need to be 2/3. Just needs to be a 51-49 vote. And that's given that the Democrats are going to have the Senate majority with Vice President Harris. And Mitch McConnell has made it no secret that he absolutely would be inclined to vote to convict Trump. I'm not going to say there's a great chance, but there is a decent chance that Trump could in fact be banned from running in 2024. So all this is happening, by the way. Trump's going to be fleeing to Florida, to Mar-a-Lago, or as Michael Cohen referred to it, Magistan, to kind of be president in exile or whatever he wants to be. I think he's trying to get like a military send-off as he fucks off from Washington.
Yeah, he wants to have a 21-gun salute.
Yeah, good luck with that, Don. Good luck with that.
Anyways, let's wrap it up. All
right. Anyway, yep. So thank you all for listening. And we did a lot of stuff tonight. And again, going forward, we're going to be doing like general discussion stuff, hopefully, because we're now reaching a point where we don't have to be going, oh God, what the fuck happened every single week. And Joe Biden, President of the United States, by the time you probably listen to this recording, thank fucking God all this is over. So we will see you all next time. Stay positive, test negative, and take care.
Adios.
Bye bye.